Um. Oh.
Something wrong?
No.
What's your major malfunction?
Oh, it's just that during the break I was playing the Christmas music, but now I realize I had the system sound muted so that you would be muted, which meant that also the music was muted so nobody heard the music. It's fine. All right, now Keith, we're done with Keith's stupid list, and we're on to Kylie.
I think I had a good and brave list.
Oh, it was
my
brave
list was important
now?
and brave. Yeah,
Wow,
it was brave. I had the courage to come into here with 5 games because I didn't feel like this year deserved more games than that.
Very brave of Keith to give everybody the most shit about breaking the rules, but then also making up his own rules every year.
Who do I give shit about breaking rules?
I think we know.
I think I was a revolutionary on the front of breaking rules in Game of the Year lists, and then the rule that I'm breaking now that we've established that it's cool to break rules, I'm breaking that rule, and that it is now uncool to break rules, and actually we're taking it serious now.
Oh, okay.
Everyone's doing we don't care about Game of the Year. It's 2020. It's time for someone to take it serious again.
Right.
The tides of change are rising once again.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to change something about the way we did Game of the Year, but I thought maybe instead of showing up as a big surprise, I would wait until we did Game of the Year and then ask about changing it next year.
What was that?
I feel like I miss when we used to make a big list and go through the whole list of all the games. I think there's been years where
that was
have
your
said,
change.
To not do that.
The math, you introduced the math thing.
No, not the math thing. Like, I think there was at least one year where like, I used to like go through the releases of that year and then make a list, like not of every release, but just of the releases that we would feasibly care about. And then like, I think one year we spent like 2 hours just going down the list and talking about all the games of the year. We should do that as a separate podcast before Game of the Year. I think every year we talk about like, we should do a pre-Game of the Year podcast so that our Game of the Year podcast doesn't start with 2 hours of talking about every game that came out that year. But then guess what? We didn't do that. And then we talked for 2 hours about every game that came out this year. But that's fine. It just happens.
Yeah, it's just that not very many games came out this year.
Yeah, and I do love that Keith was so brave as to
brave.
And I think the bravest thing about Keith this year is the way that he is framing this as a return to strict adhesion to the original rules, and yet has not even fulfilled the 10 game list thing. How is this?
No. Not a strict adhesion to the rules.
Okay.
Not a strict adhesion to the rules.
I'm sorry.
A strict adhesion,
Okay.
a brave and courageous new dedication to the concept of this being games of the year and not a top 10 list.
You're talking about a brave new adherence to Game of the Year being about the best games released that calendar year, not your 10 favorite games that you played that year.
Right.
Okay, you can't just keep saying not the top 10 games of the year like it means anything to someone besides you and me. Because I know what you mean.
All the lists are top 10. Thousands of gamers every year top 10ing themselves to death. I've had enough of it. If there's 5, there's only 5. And I will stand by this. I will die defending this because of how brave it was to do.
And yet you still had 5 more games you needed to talk about.
Didn't need.
Wanted
Didn't
to.
need. Wanted to. They were not of the year. I mean, some of them came out this year, but they were not my games of the year.
Okay.
I mean, we started with one that I basically just shit on.
All right. We are into my list. Number 10 is a little game I call Conduct Together.
Wait, is this going to be a Brave game? Is this going to be a Brave list or not a Brave list?
Well, I think you can see that my number 10 game is Conduct Together, a couch co-op train game. So I think it's pretty brave. I think it's brave to start your top 10 list with a game nobody's heard of. Right? And aren't we all praising me for that right now?
Or is having a game that no one's ever heard of on your top 10 list, is that just trading in the exact currency that
that you
top
have
10 lists
you've
always
peddled
have?
you've peddled in previous years? Yeah, well, just wait till you get to my number 1 when I picked a 2-year-old Star Wars mod to a 5-year-old game. And then you'll know that I was truly pulling a Keith. Conduct Together.
Wait, it's not I won't guess. Wait, you didn't put wait, this is a joke.
Oh
You're
my
just making
God.
a joke. You were just
Keith
calling
just
back
got
to when I did
fully
that.
dunked on.
I was just trying to think of if you had put the Switch release of Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy on your list.
No, I would not have. I wouldn't have put that game on my. Well, I was gonna say I wouldn't have put that game on my top 10 list of the year it came out, but that is maybe not 100% true.
In this house, we respect Kyle Katarn.
And well, he's barely in that game. If you want to respect Kyle Katarn, play a different Jedi Knight game.
No, but it is matured and philosophical and fully of himself, Kyle Katarn.
I think in this house we respect Kyle Katarn by playing Dark Forces 1. You know, when Kyle Katarn was fucking real, and so was Dark Forces. Right?
Dark Forces 2, best Dark Forces.
Okay. No, I was making fun of the fact that one year your game of the year was a Star Wars mod for Mount and Blade, a mod that did not come out that year for a game that was even older.
That era is dead.
It's dead. It's been buried. It's
It might be a zombie soon. I'm not going to say it's dead forever.
Oh,
but
okay. Wow.
It's dead this year.
Jesus Christ.
We'll see how I feel next year.
Wow, I'm positively bowled over by your commitment to, I don't know.
I'm fully committed.
Your commitment to uncommitment. So can I talk about the game on my list, or do we still we have more to do? Okay. The first game is called Conduct Together, and it's just a game I found randomly on the Switch eShop. And it's a couch co-op game. I've described it before, but it's sort of like you
mentioned this when we played Unrailed.
Unrailed, yeah. So in Conduct Together, Unrailed, not on the list, by the way. I think I said that already. Unrailed.
I have to address Seti in the chat. Says I like Keith's idea, but I also feel like there were more than 5 good games this year that merit being on a Game of the Year list. Not that I played. I didn't play those games. I mean, maybe you have ideas of which ones those are that are games I played, but like I explicitly did not want to put Animal Crossing on this list. And if I had to put 10 games on this list, that would have been there. It was unacceptable. Anyway, sorry, Kylie.
Now, far be it from me to tell my cousin how he should go about constructing his Game of the Year list, because Lord knows I would never. But if I were to do that, I might suggest that maybe if you had started crafting the list, say, more than 7 days in advance of the podcast recording, you might have had time to fill in that list with different games from this year that you could play and go, oh, I like that.
I've been doing that.
And just nothing hit.
Yeah, I just had to follow my heart. I just had to not include the game just because I liked it more than anything else except Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Okay.
I'm just bringing some honor back to the list.
All right. That's and like the real concept of honor, it's confusing, somewhat nonsensical, and frankly, it's just a bunch of toxic masculinity. Right?
Tell me about Conduct Together.
Yeah, fine. I'll tell you about Conduct Together. It's a little game where you get each level you'll get a top-down view of a little like looping railway station that will have a few train stations dotted around, and you'll get between 1 and 4 trains that are gonna go around these tracks, and you have to you basically have to bring a certain number of passengers to their destination within a time limit without crashing your trains. So you'll have like the rail stations will all have a color. There'll be a red one, but then passengers of all colors will show up at the rail station. So you'll have to like bring a train to the station. They'll pick up as many of whatever is the most abundant color passenger at that stop. Like if there's the most red passengers that want to go to a red station, they get on the train becomes red, so you know where it needs to go. You bring the train to another red station, those passengers will get off, and then whatever passengers are at that red station will get on the train, and it keeps going like that. And each train will have a face button over it. So there's like the A button train, the B button train, and all the button does is just stop or start the train. Like if I push the A button, A train hits its brakes and just stops on the tracks. And then when I hit the A button again, the train will continue moving. And the 4 buttons of the 4 directions of the D-pad all have track switches assigned to it. So you have to keep switching all the tracks and starting and stopping all the trains so that they move in concert. You'll say like, oh, you have to successfully move 65 passengers within 90 seconds without crashing any of your trains. And it gets to be like way too much to keep track of for one person. And that's why you got to get a second person to help you conduct together, Keith. And it gets wacky because everyone has full control. Well, unless you're doing like you only have 2 Joy-Cons and then one person gets track switching and the other person gets starting and stopping the trains. But if everyone has a real controller, you can have 1 to 4 people that are all, then you get into that problem where like if you need to stop the B train and I push B to stop it and Keith pushes B to stop it, it's just going to start up immediately because now Keith has restarted the train by pushing the B button a second time.
Right. And the goal is, or the eventuality at least, is that you fail.
Or no, you can win.
You can win.
Like,
okay, it's not infinite.
It's a selection of discrete levels that all have a different track design, and it'll be like, when you first start playing, it's a little bit hard to wrap your head around like what you're trying to do to win. It's just that there are stations, and passengers appear at those stations with a destination in mind, and you have to bring a certain number of passengers successfully to their destination, whatever that destination may be, within usually 90 seconds. So it's like you got to bring 65 people where they're going within 90 seconds. You're not building the track. The track is already there. You're just controlling the trains starting and stopping and the track switches. That's all you're doing.
I had a really funny idea for a game just now.
Oh yeah?
I was going to make a joke about the trolley problem, right? You know, the thing where it's the thing that sucks, where you're like,
I hate it.
Do you switch and kill 5 people, or do you whatever? I thought I was gonna make a joke about that. I was gonna be like, are you able to? I couldn't think of a good enough joke to say, but then I thought about a very funny idea for a game where you take a lot of it doesn't have to be overwrought, but I'm going to use that word. You take a lot of overwrought philosophical thought experiments and just make extremely literal representations of them where you just pick one of the outcomes that's supposed to be make you think. You just pick that one as the right one, and move on.
Like they just keep giving you trolley problems and you pick the correct answer and then
Right, you pick the correct answer, and if you get it right, you go to the next level where
and it's called the game is called Trolley Solutions.
Yeah. yeah. And it's not just the trolley problem over and over. You find it, get a bunch of different of these thought experiments. And like you do a Schrodinger's cat and it just shows you the thing. It explains Schrodinger's cat. It asks you if the cat's in there, and you just say, yeah, the cat's, or it asks you if the cat's alive, and you go, yeah, cat's alive. And then you win, and then you go to the next one.
Oh, I should mention about the trains. I'm playing a trailer now for the people to watch in the video version. If you're listening to the podcast version, there's a video version with almost no video on it on youtube.com/runbutton, except for this one time I just played a trailer. And I'm remembering that when the trains crash, they explode very colorfully. Big.
This is got a good look to it.
Yeah, it's a very bright, colorful, attractive looking game with big colorful
definitely
explosions.
has the Nintendo eShop look, but it works.
Yeah.
For it.
And this trailer is billing it as the award-winning classic, like reimagined or something. I don't even know what they mean. I guess they're not saying classic. This could just be a phone game that was reimagined for the Switch. I don't know. Maybe the original was called Conduct Alone.
Railroad Action reimagined.
Okay. Well, anyways, great little fun game. It wasn't gonna be on my list, but then I played it a little bit last night, and I was immediately having a blast, and I was like, nah, this is going on the list because it's real fun.
What did it kick off?
It's hard to say. It kind of came together at the last moment, but well, I think what was gonna be on the list was Sega Ages Phantasy Star, which was just the original Phantasy Star for the Master System, but re-released on the Switch, because I had a lot of fun playing it, and the package was done by M2, which are like famous for doing all of the good collections of Sega games. So there's just like tons of great options, and even though it's basically just a ROM, they added all of these quality of life features to improve it, like a map and seeing your character's health on screen at all times that are like in the border around the ROM, which is really cool. And it has like fast forward that doesn't speed up the music. It's basically like the best re-release of an old game ever, except that I realized it actually came out 2 years ago. So that was an easy one to kick off.
For my game idea set, he says, get that Chip of Theseus in there. That's another good one. Is this the same boat? Nope.
Yes.
Nah, different boat. Ding you in.
You start with one boat, you watch it get repaired, and then at the end you have to decide if it's the same boat or not.
Is this the same boat?
This is giving me really bad chess vibes. Do you know that game?
No.
It's
Chess? Do I know the game Chess?
No, really bad chess.
Oh, I thought the vibes were bad.
No.
Bad vibes about chess.
No, this is giving me the vibes of the game, really bad chess.
No, never heard of that.
It's just it's like a chess puzzle game, where they'll give you a chess scenario and be like, now you gotta win or whatever, but it'll be like, you have 8 knights and the other player has 6 rooks. Like, it's just like totally unbalanced and just random.
Okay.
But I think really popular among chess fans. They were hedging with that title. They called it really bad chess because they got out in front of the fact that they're breaking this game that's really well balanced.
Are you having trouble getting the X back up?
I'm sorry.
Or getting the picture?
No, what happened was actually the thing I was just doing of just clicking around stuff on my screen and scrolling up and scrolling down. I just do that the whole time. I've been doing that this whole time. No one could see because I didn't have my desktop on the stream, but then I did just now.
Okay.
And so my secret was revealed. But that was my number 9 game. That was my number 10 game. My number 9 game is... Oh, wow. Coming at you hard and fast with another game that no one's heard of except for me because I was scanning through the eShop and found a thing. And this one is called Inmost.
I try to scroll through the eShop to find stuff every once in a while and never can.
So this is a bit of a spooky game. It's a little spookster. So we found it because Cheryl and I were looking for a spooky thing to play on Halloween, and I think like our more elaborate idea for a fun spooky game to play like fell through. So it was like, I'll find this thing instead.
What was the more elaborate plan?
I don't remember what it was. I just remember Inmost being like the fallback thing of like, oh, we'll play Inmost instead. And man, this trailer thing was maybe a good idea. I should just do that. Sorry, I didn't give your list this treatment.
It's fine.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm sure you're fine with it. It is like a side scrolling.
Blazeball doesn't have a trailer, I don't think.
No, probably not. It's a beautiful pixel art. Mostly pixel art. There's some like video effects, lighting effects on top of it. Beautiful pixel art, side scrolling puzzle platformer. That's spooky. And it's
It looks pretty, not spooky.
It's very pretty. Like I would say this is a game. This game, I think, would mostly be fine for Keith to play. But then there's like a couple bits where it would get too spooky and you'd be like, oh, I wish I didn't get this far into this spooky game, because now I'm too spooked by it.
What is it? The trailer's not helping me.
The game?
Yeah, the game.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to that point. I said it's a side-scrolling puzzle platformer mostly. And it tells the story of 3 different characters. There's like... And this is playing with reality a lot, because it's like, this is a very fantasy setting. You see, here's like the knight, and he's got a sword, and he's in front of a castle. But then you also play as like this kind of like middle-aged guy with a beard who's like crawling through, I guess it's like a ruined castle. And then there's a young girl who's like maybe kindergarten age or something, and she's very much not in a magical world. She's in like a house. And so that trailer was stupid. That was that was not a trailer. That was just the intro to the game. So it's a simple game. It's not very long, and it's a lot of puzzle platformy type stuff. So it's like puzzles about like, how do you climb up here and get through this space and stuff. And that's probably the least interesting part of it, though it was fun to play. I played the whole thing in 2 sittings. I kind of went back and forth about whether or not I should include this game on the list, because I found the story really engrossing. And then I got to the end, and it kind of, the story took some hard turns, and then, it did like and here's what this story was about. And like that part of it is kind of weird. And I'm ultimately not sure how to feel about all of it at the end.
Did it pull a braid? It pulled a braid?
Did it pull a braid? I guess it's something like, I guess the thing I'm thinking about it is kind of like in that area. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking it is like Braid because this game is a 2D puzzle platformer like Braid is. What I really liked about say the little girl's story.
Oh, that looks nice.
That
snake monster looked cool.
Yeah, that snake monster was cool. I don't remember that snake monster.
Oh.
Yeah, you know what? I should take this video off the screen because I think it's making it harder for me to talk about it. List.
Okay. What do you do in this game? What are the puzzles like?
What are the puzzles like? Well, I played this game in October. Well, I played it half in October and half in November. But those 2 days were right next to each other.
God,
Ooh.
I gotta say, my strong 5-game list is looking like a good idea now.
Good for you. I actually have to go for a second and say goodnight to my daughter.
Okay.
I've returned.
Hello.
All right. So Inmost, let me go to the document and fucking, because I'm also trying to talk while I'm like trying to fix this document. So Inmost, it's a puzzle platformer, like, and that means, sorry, I thought that explained it. A puzzle platformer is like when you're playing a Mario game, but it's like you don't just jump on the enemies, it's like a puzzle. And so you have to be like, how do I get up this ladder? And then maybe you find a way to get up that ladder. It's really like the gameplay of it is basic in that way. I guess it's sort of Metroidvania-ish because like at least one of the characters is in like an open the middle-aged guy that you spend, I would say, most of the game playing as is in kind of like a interconnected and castle environment where you're going around and opening, you open passages and shortcuts that like let you get around the castle faster, but largely you're just...
But there's no zooming in on a puzzle that takes you out of the 2D world and into a puzzle interface.
No,
Okay.
It's just like the puzzle is how do you get your character where they need to go.
Is there a lot of character work?
I'm sorry?
Like, are the characters present? Do you just control the guy? Is there like a story being told through characters interacting or thinking or greeting?
There is yes. Wow, this game's hard.
And how is it?
Why am I guess. God, man, I hate talking about games. Want to just be done with it forever?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, you're trapped.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I know that this is going to rub you the wrong way because it's a weird and abrasive thing to do, but I just don't have anything else to say about the gameplay of this game. It's like a very basic kind of like puzzle platformer, but it's a Metroidvania kind of thing. The story, for all three characters, the way the story is told is, you're kind of, it's not revealing what exactly is going on with these characters until nearer to the end. I really liked the stuff where you're playing as this little girl who's in this house, and all of her fears are like, it's this fun thing that I've been kind of waiting for a game to do that I haven't seen very often, but it's like this little girl walking around like a spooky house alone mostly, and she keeps like imagining that there's something like that she knows that there's something really awful in like a certain part of the house or something, but the way it's told, the game also convinces you that there probably is something really bad there, and then you go and then there isn't, like, and it keeps happening again and again. And I found that really interesting, just sort of like from a child's perspective, this world is scary, but then also there's a lot of genuinely scary stuff that ends up happening to this girl, so it gets kind of weird at the end. But it was just it's like a cheap game. I think it was like $5 or $10, and it's maybe like 3 or 4 hours long. And I think it was just like no one element of the game is like particularly stand out as being amazing, other than the fact that it's like a very beautiful pixel art game. But it just works really well together. Like the story is just interesting enough to to keep you pushing through the gameplay, which is just interesting enough, that it gets you to the next bit of the story, and it kind of works together really well. And I also liked some of the scary bits. It's hard for a 2D pixel art game to be scary, but it pulls it off a few times. And
yeah, I'm having a hard time imagining being scared by a 2D pixel art game, but I was scared at parts of Hollow Knight. That's a 2D game. It's not pixel art, but it's 2D.
Yeah. What parts of Hollow Knight were scary?
General vibe.
Yeah, there's a pretty dreadful vibe in this game. And that, that was basically the story. My story of Inmost was like random game I picked off the eShop to play because it was Halloween, and I had a great time with it, even if the end was a little weird. But I still really liked. So like some of the writing choices weird and questionable, but mostly how the story is told I really liked. And then my number 8 game is Kentucky Route Zero.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's get in there. So the reason this game is so low on my list, the only thing I have to say about it, the reason it's so low on the list is like, even though I really like it a lot, it's kind of just a book, and it makes my brain scream when I play it. And that's not Kentucky Route Zero's fault. That's a problem for me and my stupid brain. But it doesn't change the fact... I wonder
if you had played it over, like, 10 days instead of 7 days. Like, just slightly longer, if maybe it would have bumped up.
Maybe, but the thing is, like I said, I only would have finished it if I had the pressure. Like, I had all year to play it. I waited until the last 7 days, because that's the pressure that I needed to get through it.
Well, I was thinking that maybe 10 days would have had the same amount of pressure, but given you an extra couple days.
Well, I actually
to ruminate.
I think that is technically what I had. I think I had 7 days, and then you texted me, like, I think we were supposed to record on Saturday, and you texted me, like, in the middle of the night on Friday, and was like, hey, sorry, can we postpone till Monday? And I looked up at the TV, which was still displaying, like, the middle of Act 4 of Kentucky Route Zero that I had fallen asleep during, and I was like, yeah, that would be good.
You changed your mind. I asked you if it would be annoying to postpone, knowing that you had already wanted to postpone, and I said no, because I couldn't do Sunday. And you changed your mind very quickly that it was a little annoying to that it wasn't annoying.
Well, I think it was like, it was a little annoying because I had already been planning it, and it was like it was annoying that you struck down the idea of taking extra time, but then it happened right before we recorded. But then I remembered, like, yeah, but I'm not ready though, so actually it's not annoying. I was just like, I get really anxious about like getting the recording done and getting the podcast out. I can't imagine why. It's not like we've ever had any problems getting the Game of the Year podcast out on time.
Not that I can think.
No. And then my next game is Blazeball, which again we don't have to talk about. But I'll say, like, so for example, with like the Kentucky Route Zero thing, my next game is Black Mesa, which is the other game that I was cramming this past week, along with Kentucky Route Zero. Black Mesa 1.0 / Definitive Edition, the only game to reach 1.0 and its Definitive Edition in the same year, which is amazing.
What makes it definitive?
I'll tell you.
Okay.
But the thing I was saying about...
This was the game, by the way, if people haven't seen, we did an extra long snooze button.
Yes.
For I think no other reason besides that Kylie did not want to stop playing it.
Yeah. So we did snooze. We did Black Mesa for snooze button, which I basically picked for no reason. Yeah, I explained the reasons in the video, but there was no real reason other than that Black Mesa hit 1.0 this year. And so like basically the first time I played Black Mesa was like an hour before that snooze button, and then we did extra long snooze button, and then I played Black Mesa like 4 or 5 more hours just that day, and then I kept playing Black Mesa, and now I'm done with it, and it took me 37 hours. That's a long game.
How did it take you that long?
I'll tell you why. So the thing I had about Kentucky Route Zero real quick is like when I'm playing Black Mesa, I'm in like this gameplay flow state where I'm just like, I don't want to stop. I'm just like, anytime something comes up that's like, you could do this instead, or maybe you should this or that, my brain is like, no, it's Black Mesa. We're in it, and we're just gonna keep going with Black Mesa unless I get like
Black Mesa until I die.
I'm playing Black Mesa until I die, unless I get stuck in a part of Black Mesa that's confusing, and then maybe it's easier to stop. But in Kentucky,
this is how I've been feeling about the Yakuza games that I've been playing.
Right? Yeah, and so in Kentucky Route Zero, maybe if it's a particularly sharp bit of story or writing that I'm getting through at the time. Maybe I'm wrapped on the screen for a couple minutes, but mostly as I'm playing Kentucky Route Zero, even though intellectually I'm like, this game's great, my brain is basically screaming at me to stop. It's like, why are you doing this? This is like, please stop doing this. It's just words and I'm so bored. So it's just really hard for me to get through a game like Kentucky Route Zero. Weird, right? It's like, it's easier for me to read a book than it is to play a game that is mostly book-like. For some reason. But anyways,
because there's so much going on visually and orally, and there is words. It's a lot of reading.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of reading, and it's a lot of like anecdotes. It's a lot of like side stuff, and when it's like my brain already wants to disengage when you're like, let me give you like a little 5-page story that doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of Kentucky Route Zero. It's like,
I think it all has something
exactly
to do.
Like it's all part of it, and I know that obviously I'm not trying to be like, oh, it's fucking game with its side stories, but like a little
80% of this game isn't even about the game.
But yeah, exactly. But there's a little bit of like voice in the back of my head that's just like, oh boy, another melancholy anecdote. Here we go. It's like Kentucky Route Zero. It's like,
it's a tableau.
Like, for example, when I'm reading a book, I'm one of those people that like really needs the feedback of the pages of the book showing you how far through the book you are, like, so that I have that end point in mind that I'm like working to. Like, I gotta finish this book. And Kentucky Route Zero totally had that thing with like the act structure. It was like, if it was all one thing, I'm not sure I would have gotten through, but it's like, okay, like I made it through Act 3. It was very long, but now I'm 3/5 done. So I have to keep going, like that sort of thing.
The thing, for me, the thing that helps is that I think that I could and did play each act and interstitial like as one sitting. And sometimes I would do 2, but none of them were 3 hours for one thing. So it was pretty easy for me to just be like, I will just start Act 3.
Oh, that's funny,
keep playing it until I'm done.
For me, they totally were. Like Act 3 and 4 were easily 3 hours long each. Because I'm a slow reader, and also I think because I feel like that experience is something that it's like I'm having to push through. It feels, I don't know.
Maybe I'm not remembering how long those things were.
I'm a really slow reader. Very slow.
I'm a fairly quick reader.
Because I went on like howlongtobeat.com, and they're telling me like Acts 3 and 4 are each 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah,
not for this person over here.
I was more like 2 hours. I also do a lot of looking around at stuff. So I think that I took maybe like whatever it says for each act. I probably took like an extra hour after that.
Though I did resist, because there's also Kentucky Route Zero will give you a lot of opportunities where it'll be like, you can stay here for 45 minutes and learn all of our sad tales, or you can just move on with your thing. And I like fought the urge the whole way through to just move on with the story and to skip all the stuff.
Yeah, I got as much out of it as they gave me. I missed stuff. I mean, I ended the game without a single achievement on Xbox for like finding a character where they weren't supposed to be or whatever. Like, and I was like really mad that there was stuff that I missed. But I didn't.
I heard Austin say, "Oh, there's a big character. There's a character who's important later on who actually can show up in the first act, but you might miss them." And I guess it was Carrington who Austin described as Big Antlers guy, and me, who had finished the game, was like, "Who the fuck is Big Antlers guy?" And Austin, like, and I think someone had that same reaction. Austin was like, how can you not know who I mean when I say Big Antlers guy? Do you know Big Antlers guy?
No.
Who's Big Antlers guy?
Who's Big Antlers guy?
It was interesting that Austin framed it as like, you can miss this character in Act 1. I'm like, I guess you can miss them in every act. Maybe you
What
have to.
act were they in?
Maybe you have to find them in Act 1 to even get them to appear in the other acts. I don't know.
James
Carrington.
Oh, it's also possible that I met this guy and didn't
Or maybe they didn't
notice
have antlers.
the antlers because I was playing on a TV on my couch, and the game, like I talked about before, the game is like the background of the scene. Like there's no foreground, and the game is in the background. So I played a lot of the game like not really having a good idea of what characters looked like.
Oh yeah, I didn't even realize that Junebug and Johnny were robots until the act after they appear.
Oh, I knew that because when they walk, they go.
Yes, for the rest of that act, I was paying attention because you control Conway in that act, and so I was watching Conway run around and hearing these weird clanks and robot gears, and just going, I don't understand where that sound is coming from. I guess Conway's walking on a clanky floor. I don't know. And then I realized why they were making that sound, and I was like, oh, I missed something. But it's funny though, because like I guess the original pitch for Junebug, it was all about how she was a robot and stuff, but then when you play the game, I mean, like, her being a robot is an important part of who she is as a character, but like it has nothing to do with how you meet her or like, you know, her entry into the story at all, which is funny.
Yeah. Well, that has to do with I think part of the thing about the game
Carrington
is that nothing, there's not a lot that's important that happens. Like the entire story is like things that are about people, you know? So it's like
oh, he's
the entire story is like stuff that happens to people, you know?
Okay, so I found Big Antlers guy, and I still don't recognize him, but I realize now he's carrying a rack of antlers over his shoulder. He himself does not have big antlers.
Okay.
He's just from Act 2, I guess. Maybe he's just an unimportant character I didn't note, I guess.
Act 4, if the player met him in Act 1, Carrington will replace Rick at the Bureau of Reclaimed Spaces at the opening of Act 2. Additionally, if the player returns to the Bureau before visiting St. Thomas Church, Carrington will be standing by reception.
Okay,
there you go. And then in Act 3, if the player spoke to him in Act 2, Carrington will appear at the location Conway suggests. At Elkhorn Mine, Carrington expresses concern about the place's acoustics. Conway may suggest he use the mine's PA system. I think I remember that.
I got Rick, so that's what happened.
And then in Act 4, if the player spoke to him in Act 3, he will appear again during the scene where the characters are in line to make a phone call from a booth floating on the Echo River. So it seems like a lot of his appearances are based on all of them, it seems.
So it turns out I was right. You don't get Carrington in the rest of the game if you miss him in Act 1. So that's what's up with Big Antlers guy.
It's slightly confusing because there's in Act 2 you can find Carrington independently by visiting St. Thomas Church a second time. But I don't think I did that. I just can't. I mean, we're talking about like February, so I just don't remember.
And that's why Black Mesa is my number 6 game of the year.
Okay.
The end.
Good.
No. So Black Mesa is a remake, a fan-made remake of the original Half-Life. Half-Life 1. It was originally, I forgot about this until I was reminded last night. It was originally called Black Mesa Source. Because the whole point of it was like, we're taking Half-Life 1 and we're putting it in the Source engine, which was the engine for Half-Life 2. That was 16 years ago. Or, well, okay, maybe they decided to start the mod like 15 or 14 years ago, but I'm pretty sure it couldn't have been. It was definitely not less than 14, and I think it was 15 or 16 years ago.
This is a fan mod.
Uh-huh.
Is this endorsed by Valve?
Yes. So so Valve was not a part of it at the beginning. Now I don't know when this happened. The game has changed hands a few times, and it was finished by a collective called the Crowbar Collective, which is a great name for a Black Mesa dev team. And it became
a bar that a lot of crows go to.
So So I think at some point around like somewhere between like 2013 and 2016, it gets picked up by this group that goes by Crowbar Collective, and it gets crowdfunded so that they can finish the game. So the game hit 1.0 earlier this year, and then because the game was in development for so long, a lot of the earlier parts of the game I think were a lot rougher than the later sections, and so the definitive edition, after they put out 1.0 earlier this year, the dev team kept working like full steam basically until October, where they put out the definitive edition, which was touching up a lot of the earlier content in the game. And they call that the final major update for Black Mesa. So Black Mesa is about as complete as it will ever be at this point. Well, that is to say it is complete.
Be very funny if they had a definitiver edition.
I mean, they could certainly go back and bring a lot of the game's, level of quality, however you personally define that. They could bring it up to match some of the later sections. Still, not that they need to, but I like Half-Life 1 a lot, but I actually hadn't played through it since I think I've only played Half-Life 1 start to finish once. And that was like in 2004 or something. It was also like I played Halo 1 and Half-Life 1 the same year, both in anticipation of their highly anticipated sequels that both came out in 2004.
What's better?
Halo or Half-Life?
Halo 1 or Half-Life 1?
Ooh.
Answer the age-old question.
Gosh, you're really asking me to compare, an apple to like a fruit that's nothing like an apple, like some kind of citrus fruit. Like if you're like, hey, take these limes and tell me if they're better than these apples, and that's hard to do.
Do you know what's funny? I can do that. I can compare apples and limes.
Okay, go ahead.
Apples have a slightly tart, edible skin. Limes have a rind. They're extremely sour, but also very sweet, very fragrant.
Could I modify your task that I'm giving you?
Okay.
I would like you to compare them qualitatively. In essence, which one is empirically better than the other?
Apples.
Oh, why?
To eat, apples are better to eat.
No. Which one's better?
In general, limes.
Why?
Because they are fragrant, flavorful, useful. Apples taste better. That's all that they have.
Mm-hmm.
They're less useful in pretty much every other way to a lime.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Limes are better than apples.
Yeah, definitely. And yet, apple, still pretty good, though. Hey.
Still pretty good. Hey, some apples are pretty good.
Good job out there,
I
Apple.
can compare. It's actually harder to compare apples to apples than apples to limes, because apples have a lot of similarities that make them difficult to distinguish.
Right.
Like, sure, a Red Delicious is very different than a Pink Lady, but you take a Pink Lady, a Honeycrisp, and a Fuji apple, could you tell the difference in a blind test?
Ooh.
Maybe I could tell. I mean, a Honeycrisp or a Pink Lady apart.
If I knew what 5 I had to go off of, I could maybe, I could take a crack at it. But if you just gave me 5 apples and said, tell me what kind of apple these 5 apples are, I could not do that. I could get Red Delicious. That's about it. Because it's so different from other apples.
It's so different and so obviously worse.
I definitely have an extant fondness for Red Delicious apples.
Kylie, it's a scam apple. That's a scam apple.
People are out here being like, Red Delicious apples, they're bad. And I'm here to say, listen, it is somewhat of a misnomer, I have to say, but
hold on.
It's okay.
I have to correct you here, and I apologize for this.
Ooh.
I apologize for having to correct you here. The idea that Red Delicious apples are disgusting shams is a relatively new idea. They were the best-selling apples for half a century.
Okay.
And deserve to be dethroned. They are not an indie darling. They are a horrible, decrepit institution.
Okay. Was there more, or is that you just needed to get that off your chest?
I just had to get that off my chest.
All right.
I just don't want, you can defend Red Delicious apples, but I don't want you to defend them as though they're much maligned, because they were the most popular apple in the world for half a century.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm not sure that I had this info. I mean, I at least knew Red Delicious as being one of the premier apple varieties available for purchase in the United States.
Aesthetically, it's your standard apple.
Sure.
You picture an apple, you're picturing a
You're probably
Red
picturing
Delicious.
a Red Delicious. Yeah,
There's
but then,
actually
but then
an
you take a bite of it and you're like,
apple
I
native
wasn't.
to New York, whose name I can't remember, and that is in a lot of ways the standard apple, but it's very visually similar to the Red Delicious, and that has sort of taken its place as the main apple.
Wow, and this is all
in the mind share.
Fascinating. But to get back to
need
your
more
original
apple facts?
question,
I have a question.
okay, what's your question?
What's better, Halo 1 or Half-Life 1 original?
Wow. That's really tough, because I think Halo 1 original, certainly it holds up. I mean, it's 3 years newer, and those were 3 important years, but it certainly, I would say, holds up better to modern FPS campaign sensibilities. Half-Life is, it's probably clunkier. The AI is certainly not as good, though it felt pretty good at the time.
The AI in Halo is not as good?
No, in Half-Life it's not as good.
Oh, okay.
So Halo was known for its good enemy AI at the time, was Half-Life. Though I think, I rewatched like the No Clip Half-Life documentary like last night or the night before, and so this is like fresh in my head. That there's at a certain point in Half-Life you start fighting these Marines. You're a scientist and a big experiment goes wrong, and so aliens start coming in from a portal to another dimension. And your immediate objective becomes get to the surface, get out of this underground facility, and call for help or something. And at some point it switches to, I hear the military is coming to save us. And then the military gets there and they're not there to save them. And then you spend a good majority of the rest of the game fighting these human soldiers. And they are like, they have a lot of voice clips where they communicate, where they'll say like, if they spot you, they'll be a voice cue like, oh, I see him over there. It was one of those first times when enemies had voice cues about where they saw you and what they were doing, even if, I think the soldiers had like voice cues about like their coordinations that they would be doing, but it was largely a smokescreen and they weren't really coordinating. They were just kind of saying that. I think they do coordinate
stuff
more in Black Mesa.
Let's team up and go around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. But so it's funny because I didn't, when I was playing Black Mesa, I'm pretty sure those they actually do coordinate. And that's really interesting. You can hear them yell like push, push, and then you'll see them like come around the corner and try to get you. I played through Black Mesa with my Steam controller, and I played through on the default difficulty.
You're doing pretty good with it too.
Thank you. And can I say, way better now. I mean, you caught me at the beginning of my time with Black Mesa, and now I'm like way better than I was before. But anyways, what was I saying?
Black Mesa,
God, it's
Marines,
it's that
AI.
quick to derail me these days. The quarantine hasn't been good for my mental state, Keith. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
Woof.
Bummer.
Black Mesa. I was playing it. Oh, sorry. I played it on the default difficulty, which was Black Mesa. It goes normal, Black Mesa, and hard or expert or whatever. I picked Black Mesa and I got through it. But boy, it sure was one of those old school, like, you have to ride the quick save, quick load through that whole game. There would be some times where it'd be like, I get into an encounter, I kill 4 enemies without taking too much damage, quick save. Like I move around to the opposite side of the battlefield without taking any extra damage, quick save. Like, it's that kind of thing. So if you're not looking for that experience, but you want to play Black Mesa, definitely play on normal. And the humans... So it definitely feels like it was tuned by Counter-Strike players, because like the Marines are like brutal in this game, and they just have like absolute laser accuracy, or not like laser accuracy, but they have like their like acquisition time, like the time between you're visible to them and they start shooting at you is like basically 0. And they can shoot while running, and it's funny because as I'm playing the game, I'm like, wow, they find me so quickly. They can shoot while running. This is so fucked up. But I guess Half-Life 1 must have just been like this. And so they're just being true to it. And then I watched that documentary that said that the original Marines couldn't do more than one thing at one time, including moving. So like, they could only talk while they were stopped. They could only shoot while they were stopped, and they could only reload while they were stopped. And so they very much added. So like, these fucking Marines in Black Mesa will literally sprint full clip, side strafe from one point of cover to another, shooting the whole time, but like shooting accurately at you as they move across.
Not just cover fire, like accurate fire.
Accurate fire.
Wow.
It
seems needlessly difficult.
It's definitely needlessly difficult. Again, I don't know when these encounters were tuned, because I don't know if most of these were set up years and years ago, or if the Marine AI was just tuned to be extra difficult recently. I have no clue. I mean, also they're getting feedback from their crowdfunding backers, and maybe all those people are Counter-Strike lunatics or something. I don't know. Anyways, I recommend normal difficulty is all. And I know there's one, and the spit squid, the thing that I now know as the spit squid, because I never knew what it was originally called. The spit squid is like a good example of an enemy that didn't have like a clear place in the original Half-Life. Like, it was there, but it didn't like do any more damage or take any more damage than like other enemies, and it always kind of felt like a misfit. And in Black Mesa, that enemy's damage is really tuned up, and the amount of damage it requires to kill is really tuned up, and so that becomes more of an interesting and dangerous enemy in Black Mesa over the original. And so just in general, I had a great time reliving...
What's better, Black Mesa or Halo, the Halo remake, Halo 1.
Ooh, the Halo remake? Well, I guess that's just Halo again, but it's prettier. I'm probably picking Halo for these ones, and I think both because I guess do I have more fun?
So Halo,
them?
That's interesting, because Halo 1, you said specifically, gets a benefit over original Half-Life 1 because it's 3 years newer and it's 3 important years.
Mm-hmm.
But the remade and retuned Black Mesa still not as good as the Halo 1 Anniversary Edition.
I think comparing Black Mesa to Halo 1 is even more difficult. So to give a clear picture of what's going on with Black Mesa now, and I do
want to apologize. I know that this is not. I'm not trying to prove anything.
No, it's fine.
I'm just curious.
It's interesting. I mean, it's 2 games I'm interested in. So the original Half-Life is a very long game, and it is a game. It's like, I think narrative immersion was like maybe one of the biggest things that Half-Life did when it came out, was that it's a first-person game where the camera never breaks from your player perspective. There's no cutscenes. All of the story happens in front of you, even if there's
this is a big deal.
It's a big deal at the time. There's not like a ton of story to the game. There's like a big setup. The inciting incident is like happens in front of you, and then it's like mostly fighting enemies for the rest of the game. Though, like every once in a while, it's like you'll be on your own going through. You're in the Black Mesa research facility, which is like within fiction is like miles long or something. It goes hundreds and hundreds of feet under the ground.
Miles, quote unquote, long per hour.
Yeah. So your perspective never breaks, except for like one time where they do the thing where like Gordon gets captured and knocked unconscious and he loses his weapons and wakes up in like a place. But other than that, there's no breaks in your point of view. And I brought this up for some reason. Oh, just that it's a really long game. What I really love about Half-Life 1 is that I love how it is like this long, sprawling, like in one sense it almost feels like one shooter level that is 30 hours long or something, like not that all the environments are always the same.
Yeah,
but
Half-Life 2 is kind of like that too.
Yeah, Half-Life 2 is exactly the same way, where even though there are discrete segments, like the office complex is much different than like, I think you go through like the sewage processing part of Black Mesa at some point. Obviously, those are completely different. But what's fun is that it's never like, okay, you've reached the end of the level, loading screen, next level. It's all just one continuous string of gameplay until you get to the end. And I think that's really fun because it just, I don't know, it gives this, even though Half-Life is definitely a long game because it's like 30 hours long or something for a single player shooter campaign, it ends up feeling even longer because of the way it's framed and because because you like the different segments of the game aren't as discrete as in say like Halo 1, it's harder to keep them separated in your head and it all blurs together. And in my mind, Half-Life is just like, oh, this big epic journey that you go through this massive facility. And it's funny because you're in that facility for the whole game and the game just keeps going and going and going. And you just keep thinking like, this place needs to end eventually. But of course it's a video game, so it doesn't have to ever end. It just keeps going.
Right. And it does kind of, that also feeds into not losing the first person perspective.
Right, because you never leave the game space. You're in it the entire time.
For Gordon, for Mr. Freeman, it doesn't end.
Right.
He doesn't get a load break either.
No.
And so it is this one long, like he goes on a 36-hour killing spree. He is a scientist, and he is going to keep doing research if it kills him. Most of his research is ballistics experiments of the effect of bullets on alien flesh, and he's recording all that data. And also, shit. God, why? About like the game. Like throughout the game, you don't have regenerating health. You have health and shield. You don't have any regenerating health though. You need to do health and shield pickups. And to my memory, there's no point in the game where it ever just stops and says, here's all your, like it never refills your health other than giving you a bunch of health kits, if that makes sense. Like your health bar is never reset. It's just like you have your health and you have to get through the whole game with that health, and finding health packs along the way. Like it adds to this whole feeling of like this whole game is one scenario, this one long scenario, which is one of my favorite things about the original Half-Life.
And in that original game, it's kind of famous for people love most of the game, and then it gets to this part where you go to the alien world called Zen, and it gets extremely bad. That part of the game is like borderline unfinished. It's terrible. I didn't remember how bad it was on the snooze button when we were talking about it, because I went back and played. At some point I realized I would probably benefit from replaying some bits of Half-Life 1 original to see what they were like, and those Zen segments were so much worse than I remembered.
Wow.
Remember how I got caught up because I couldn't figure out how to do the boost jump in Black Mesa? Exact same problem again, except it was a different kind of jump that I did in a different way that they also didn't tell me how to do when I warped to the Zen level, and so I got stuck until I went to a guide.
On basically
and they were
the same part.
On the same part. What's interesting, though, is that this Zen sequence, and like when I played through it on easy when I was like a kid, it was really, really hard. It took me a long time to get through, but like the sequence, it's like 4 chapters. It's one called Zen, and then one called Gonarch's Lair, which is a boss, and then there's one called Interloper, and there's one called Nihilith, which is the final boss. And if you know what you're doing and you're good at Half-Life and it's not a problem, that whole 1, 2, 3, 4 sequence probably takes 10 minutes, like 15, 20 tops.
Right.
So for Black Mesa...
But people didn't know what they were doing, and so it would take hours.
Right, and so it was awful and it would take forever. Black Mesa throws away... So for years and years, the whole Zen segment of the game just wasn't in there at all. And that was the most recent part that was added to the game and finally released with 1.0. And it seemed like... And now it makes more sense seeing that I think they were doing it kind of almost like in a Kentucky Route Zero way. They were doing like episodic like releases of each chapter of Zen as it went on. And so what they did is they threw out all of Zen completely redid it. But
it seems like they and maybe this is where you're going with this. Yeah. It seems like they made it longer necessarily.
Hugely expanded it. So,
which is an interesting choice for the part of the game that people hated.
Right.
We made it totally new and better instead of making it totally new and still and short.
Right. But the thing about these levels here, and they're like as long or longer than some of the other chapters in the game. Like I was really unprepared for how long the Zen part was, even after doing the snooze button. I was kind of like, okay, Zen, I know it's longer than it was before, but I'll breeze through it. It's many hours long. It's like, it was basically like they took the last 5% of the original Half-Life. You know, it was like Half-Life was 95% done, and then they made it 135% done or something. Like Zen is like a third of the game now, or like a quarter of the game. But it's like some of the best stuff in the whole game. Like they really, like it's the level of
so
quality.
They really fixed Zen.
They really fixed Zen. Like Zen goes from being like, I mean, it was ugly in the original game. I mean, Half-Life 1 is sort of an ugly game, but even by its own standards, that like the Zen segment was hideous. And now all of the Zen levels, the 4 chapters are all beautiful. They all have distinct art styles that are basically created for Black Mesa. Like it didn't really exist in the original Half-Life game. And they even go as far as like like I would say clarifying story elements of the original Half-Life. Like there was kind of like stuff where like you kind of had to read like the manual or like a forum post or something to like really know what was the literal like text events of like what was happening in the game. Like, you know, it's stuff like I said, the final boss is the Nihilith, and it's supposed to be like the Nihilith, like you go to the Vortigaunt's world and they're an enemy in the game, but then you find out that the final boss, the Nihilith, is a mind control monster who is mind controlling all the Vortigaunts into attacking you and being evil because they're actually peaceful.
The Vortigaunts are the big-headed things that look like they're maybe from an Oddworld game.
The Vortigaunts are the The Vortigaunts are the aliens with the big red eyes that are your friends in Half-Life 2. And they call you the free man, and they're like, I'm an alien, but I really like you. My point.
They're kind of short.
What? Oh, are they short? They're like...
Yeah, they're kind of short.
They're like human height, but only because they naturally hunch. Like, if they stood up as straight as a human, they'd be taller, but they don't do that. Just Google VOR.
Okay.
IGAUN? That seems wrong.
IGAU.
Oh, no, I got it. So they're not... I guess they're just Vortigaunts. They're not Vortigaunts. Vortigaunt.
Yeah, this is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that they had red eyes.
Oh, gotcha.
So that was the problem. But okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm up on the Vortigaunts.
Here are these guys. So like from my perspective as a Half-Life 1 player, I play Half-Life 1 and I know the red eye green hand guys that zap me with green energy lightning. They're an enemy. I have to shoot them. And then I get to Half-Life 2, and all the enemies of Half-Life are in Half-Life 2 almost, and they're all still evil monsters that want to fight me. But the Vortigaunts are like my buds, and they're like, oh, you saved us. Hey, but we're best friends now because you saved us. And I'm like, what are you talking about? How did I save you? What do you mean? Well, it turned out...
If I saved you, it wasn't on purpose.
Yeah, but it certainly wasn't. And so it turns out you were supposed to, like, I don't know if they thought they were conveying this with Half-Life 1 or if it was really just like the Zen segment. I think maybe the reason they expanded Zen so much in Black Mesa is because, like, the story of Half-Life 1's development is that Zen got horribly abbreviated or something. But anyway, all of this expanded content in Zen now makes it much clearer because you actually go to, like... You go to a Vortigaunt village and you like see their homes and they have like rough-hewn pottery around and they're like in these like kind of like
don't insult the pottery.
Oh, I'm sorry. They have beautiful hand-spun pottery. And so and it sets up these scenarios where like you're in a Vortigaunt village and they're all, you know, I don't know if they're being nice to you, but they're not attacking you. Like they're clearly not hostile. And then the Nihilants, like little baby Nihilant spawns, like show up and they start like I guess those things that are called I don't remember. They're called Zen babies because that's what I think of them as because they have big heads that make them look a little bit like babies. The Zen babies show up and they mind control the Vortigaunts and stuff into attacking you.
You've got Zen babies and ice cream cones and
candy bars. So it just, I think it really, more clearly communicates the story of like the Vortigaunts are being mind controlled by the Nihilants and you're there to, you want to destroy the Nihilanth to both supposedly save your world and also you want to save the Vortigaunts. And then, so like, I just love that they not only improved the game by just making a game, which wasn't in the original Zen part of Half-Life. It wasn't a game. It was just bullshit. They turned that bullshit into a game, but it's also a game that like improves and completes the story of Half-Life 1 in a way that it wasn't quite before. So I think it's really impressive, and all of those Zen segments, graphically they're beautiful. Like the level design and the puzzle design is really good and feels pretty consistent with the rest of Half-Life 1, so it doesn't feel totally incongruous. It feels pretty Half-Life-y because it's kind of like if suddenly Zen felt like Halo instead of Half-Life, I'd be like, okay, it's still fun because Halo is fun, but shouldn't Half-Life feel like Half-Life? But it does.
And we're always asking, shouldn't Half-Life feel like Half-Life?
And shouldn't Half-Life feel like Half-Life? So, kind of same thing with Kentucky Route Zero, but perhaps even more so. 2020 is like end of an era because Black Mesa's done.
It's done. You're finished, Black Mesa.
And I think in some ways, couldn't Valve learn a lot from Black Mesa? Because here was a game...
Valve is a sham company.
Here was a game that was in development for so long that at a certain point it almost seemed silly to continue it. You know, it's like, oh, Half-Life... What does that even mean at this point? Now that Half-Life 2 is 10 years old, what does it even mean to remake Half-Life 1 in the Half-Life 2 engine? That seems almost pointless. And yet, a lot of people cared about it. And a lot of those people were game developers, and so they finished it, and it's really great now. And now we have this really great remake of Half-Life 1, and we don't have Half-Life 3.
And we shouldn't. Wait, is that the lesson?
No, the lesson is...
You've actually gone back and forth on this.
Mike, listen, I'm just here to say... When you make a game that's like, come back for the next bit of our story, isn't this cliffhanger very exciting? Aren't you very enthralled by the story that we've concocted for you? And it's not done yet. There's more to the story. Come back for it. And then millions of people are like, yes, I would like the story, please. You should probably make it, and you should probably give it to them. You probably shouldn't let yourself get hung up for 2 decades convincing yourself that the next game in the series has to be the most revolutionary game ever created until you've waited so long that it's then impossible to do.
It must be tough for Valve having basically relied their entire career on adopting half-finished products as their games. To then have to go and make a really good game themselves.
Yeah, wow. Fucking owned, I think. And Seti says, we do have Half-Life Alyx, though. That is true. There was a different Half-Life game that came out this year.
A VR game, actually.
Yeah, it was a VR game. I mean... Hey.
We talked a lot of shit on VR, but people seem to really like Half-Life Alyx.
Oh yeah, I would love to play Half-Life Alyx. Unfortunately,
do you have $800?
Half-Life Alyx is not on the VR headset that I have and that most people have. It's on the other ones that are really expensive.
It's on the most expensive and least common ones.
Right. It did just occur to me, like, oh, VR is in the toilet. I bet tons of people are trying to offload their Vives and indexes on eBay. So I think one day I'll be able to get like a Vive for $200 or something.
Is that the Steam one?
That's the Steam one, yeah. The Valve Index.
Because HTC Vive, that was in cooperation with Valve.
Right. And then Valve was like, actually, we want to do our own thing. And what's funny is because they looked at Vive and they were like, that's not a clear enough name. It doesn't really convey what it is or anything about it. And so we need a better title like Index. Index, Keith.
Yeah, it's a bad name. We all know.
I can't conceive of a worse name for a piece of game hardware.
A full Valve Index kit is going for on eBay.
On eBay? What do you mean a full kit?
It's got the controllers, it's got the thing, and it's got the like sensors.
How many sensors? I mean, I don't
know. Several.
Okay, I don't know how much. I think this package costs like $1,200 retail, so I don't know, $800.
No, I'm seeing almost all of them are above $1,200. The cheapest one that I'm seeing is 9 bids on 910, which I assume is not the minimum. I assume someone has already bid like 1,100 on this thing.
But what about a Vive though?
A Vive? Let's see.
Because the Vives were the good ones before the Valve Index existed, which I guess is the goodest one or something.
Vive looks like you might be able to get a Vive for under 500.
Well, sorry, under 5. Yeah, I hope there's sensors
it's tough
coming
to say
with that.
because
God,
it's
they're
like,
so expensive. Wow, it's remarkable how much more expensive these headsets are than the PSVR.
So the Vive, well, yeah, it started at like 1,000, right? It was like $1,000 to buy one when they first came out.
Well, I think
so this
Vive
person's
was
got to
like
buy it now
800? I
for
don't know.
$160. That's just the headset and the link box, and then someone else here has it's bidding. People are bidding on it, but it's at $320, and it's got everything.
Okay. And
So who knows?
so I'm glad that Half-Life Alyx sounds good. I desperately wish that I could play it, but I'm still gonna take Valve to task a little bit on this, and this is not really directed at like the people that made Half-Life Alyx so much as like Gabe Newell and other like higher ups and whatever. Like, you know, I've heard some people say like
Gabe Newell can fuck off.
yeah, Gabe Newell sucks big time, but I heard I
hear that, buddy? You suck big time.
Hey, this guy sucks big league.
Go back to New Zealand.
Is he? Oh, yeah. Go not back to. Go to New. Stay in New Zealand.
Keep staying in New Zealand, bud.
Yeah. The guy. Like, listen. Hey. If people don't know what we're talking about, Gabe Newell was in New Zealand when quarantine hit, and so New Zealand was like no planes, and so Gabe Newell had to stay there, but then liked it so much that now he has applied for permanent residency and is going to like have a home there. And of course, the very next thing I heard was whispers about relocating Valve to New Zealand. And it's like, yes, of course. Right. You know,
Yeah.
It's like, you know, Gabe can talk all he wants about how, oh, Valve is a collective where everyone's valued and everyone's opinion matters. But at the end of the day, if Gabe wants to take off to fucking New Zealand, everybody better pack their bags because they're either going to New Zealand or they're hitting the road.
Yeah. Hey, I don't need to hear all this flowery language from an $M cast off. Whoa.
Yeah, Gabe Newell was a millionaire before he started Valve. Think about that.
Think about that. Think about it for a second.
Think about it. Think about it. What was I saying?
Did he famously backstab a business partner or two between Microsoft and Valve?
I don't know.
Is that something?
I don't know.
I guess it's not famous then, but I think it happened. I don't know. Sue me. If it's wrong, sue me, Gabe.
This is just for Gabe. Please don't sue Keith. Gabe, he can't afford it.
Dare you to sue me?
He's Gabe. He's just upset right now, and he's just saying things that he doesn't mean.
Gabe Newell shoplifts for fun. Gabe Newell is a It's chronic. Gabe Newell is constantly shitting his pants out of spite. It's not a medical condition. It's just to bother people in meetings. This is true.
So here's the thing about Half-Life Alyx. Obviously, no. First of all, I keep hearing people. Maybe it's just Brad Shoemaker, and hey, I'm glad that Brad is like out there keeping a torch alive for Half-Life because me too. But I keep hearing Brad Shoemaker say, "Wow, I can't believe a new Half-Life game came out and like no one's talking about it." It's like, yeah, dude, it was a VR game that didn't come out on the most popular VR platform, and also it's a prequel to a game that came out 16 years ago.
When everyone has been expecting the sequel to that game for 15 years.
Yeah, like, hey, I'm fucking sorry if you're, like, I'm sure people, I bet Gabe specifically is fucking grumping around the hallways of Valve.
Shitting his pants.
He's grumping around the hallways of Valve New Zealand.
Leaking from the ankles.
Of Valve New Zealand. Shitting his pants and it's leaking out of his ankles. And he's like, oh, see, people were fucking bitching for years about wanting a new Half-Life, and we finally gave it to them, and they're not even buying it. It's like,
How
come on, dude.
Gabe Newell sounds like one of the Games for Windows radio characters.
Hey, listen. When Half-Life 2 came out, it was literally the best looking, like the most photorealistic game I'd ever seen by like a country mile. And
ooh, that's longer than a regular mile.
It's longer than a regular mile. It's actually it's not.
It's the metric mile, which is much shorter than a regular mile. There's the standard mile and then the country mile, which is even longer.
So What was I saying? See, this is
photorealistic.
It was the most photorealistic game I had ever seen, which meant that it was, you needed to have a pretty, I guess not even really, honestly. Like, it wasn't Crysis or anything, but you needed, like, you needed dedicated gaming hardware in your PC to play the game, right? At the very least. Like, you needed, like, a pretty decent graphics card to play the game, which meant that it was out of reach for some people, right? Like, it was... There, and also it had
for plenty, especially at the time, for plenty of people.
Well, because
it was even it's a much smaller hobby.
Yeah, and I'm remembering now the other big thing about Half-Life 2 was not just the like visual fidelity, but also the havoc. Hey,
you got to put back on the list. You've just got the XSplit on the thing.
I did the thing again.
By the way, this is about to become the longest Game of the Year podcast ever.
It's not. Don't worry about it. It's not. It is, isn't it? How did that happen?
Yeah,
we haven't even been going that long.
I have a couple ideas on how.
Don't even. Anyways, Half-Life 2 was not a game that was available to everyone at the time. I couldn't play Half-Life 2 when it came out. And actually, when my birthday rolled around, like 6, 7, 8 months later, my mom was like, hey, the birthday, I think it was one of those years where my mom was like, you did great this year. I'm going to kill it on your birthday. What do you want for your birthday? And I was like, I'm sure this won't happen, but I would love a PC that could play Half-Life 2. And then my mom bought me that. And that was awesome. That was like best birthday gift ever. When people are like, what was the best birthday gift you ever got? I'm like, a PC that can play Half-Life 2, because that was sick.
Part of this, right, is that to borrow a phrase, the people that made Half-Life 2 the most important video game of that decade, or arguably one of the most important video games of that decade, those people are all dead.
Those people are all dead.
Those people are all dead.
No.
The people that made Half-Life 2 important died.
That's not where I'm going with this. What I was trying to say is like, and I see Seti in the chat saying Source was always relatively low-end PC friendly, I think, and they're probably right about that. But
my computer probably couldn't have played it at the time.
Not Half-Life 2, because like Source engine, different Source games are doing different stuff. But and my point is, so the reason they were waiting so long with Half-Life 3 or Half-Life 2 Episode 3, whatever one you want to call it. Is like, they're trying to find like what's going to be the new revolutionary technical bit of the game that's different, and it seems like they kind of settled on like, VR, right? Like, when I played Half-Life 2 and I saw havoc physics for the first time, it was totally mind blowing, most realistic thing I had seen in a game. And I guess, VR is like our modern day version of havoc physics. Like you put on the VR headset and you're like, wow, I'm like really just in a video game right now. That's wild. So I kind of get the idea of like, we're going to make Half-Life 3 and it's going to be a VR game. But you don't make it a prequel starring, a very, very popular side character, but still a side character. It's a prequel starring a side character. Like come on. Like, you waited all this time to make a Half-Life game.
People want the stupid nerd.
My point is, I don't even want the stupid. I'd be happy to play as Alyx, just not a prequel. Just call the fucking thing Half-Life 3, make it a VR game. Because here's the thing, nobody went out to buy a VR headset for Half-Life Alyx. But if it was Half-Life 3, maybe. I don't know. But like, what the fuck are they doing? They waited all this time to make a new Half-Life game, and they just made it a game no one's going to play. What is that? I don't know.
It is weird. Number 5?
Number 5. Anyways, Black Mesa's great. Half-Life 1 is great. It's, there's... wait, I'm just writing Half-Life again. There's a lot of outdated level design and gameplay in Black Mesa that comes over from Half-Life 1. But if you're looking for a way to play Half-Life 1 that won't be quite so, at least graphically, old and outdated, Black Mesa is a great way. And you know me, I love experiencing an old game. So like next time I play it, I'm just gonna play original ass Half-Life, because I want to experience the real grit of 10 polygons per model. You know?
I don't play anything if the characters don't have sharp edges.
Exactly. And we're always saying this.
Anti-aliasing, more like anti-aliasing, my blood relative.
Anti-aliasing, more like Antichrist, because I hate it so much.
It's ending the world.
Okay. So, after Black Mesa, we've got the next game on my list, which is Rocksmith.
This is your one that didn't come out this year.
2014 enhanced something.
Are you good at guitar yet?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm awesome at guitar now.
Great, so it works.
Yeah, it's great.
Have you been keeping up with it?
Not so much. I kind of fell off it a little bit. This happens to me all the time where there was like something happened where I had to like go to my daughter's house for 2 days or something. It was like 48 hours I couldn't play the guitar and it all fell apart. No,
I brought it with you.
No, I remember what it is. Is that I have a lot more space in the living room. But the television that is in the living room is very old, and it has just abysmal audio and visual lag on it, which, of course, is the very last thing that you want for any rhythm game, but especially a game in which part of the sound that you're hearing is you're playing a real instrument. So, one, I can hear the notes that I'm playing in the room, and I'm hearing the delay between when they show up in, like, the amplified version within the game.
Ooh, that's rough.
And it's a really long time.
Yeah, it's rough.
But I do have this TV in my bedroom that has better response, so I either have to bring the guitar in here or bring this TV out there, and I'm gonna figure it out. But
I'm sure you know this, but as a reminder, you do not need Rocksmith to practice the guitar.
What? I'm not aware of that. Well, here's the thing about that is you're not wrong. Except that I don't have any guitar materials besides Rocksmith, though. Like, I don't have any, like, tab sheets that I could flip through or anything like that.
No one does. It's all online.
I guess so.
So I had a guitar teacher for, like, 2 years, or maybe even less. It's hard to know. It felt like forever at the time, but I was a kid.
Right.
So I had a guitar for a short amount of time, guitar teacher. I think probably like 2 years. And then I didn't play guitar for another 3 years. And then everything I learned on the guitar, anything that is even halfway impressive that I can do on a guitar, I taught myself just like watching YouTube videos and looking at tab sheets online. Mm-hmm. So that's the real answer is that just gotta get online.
Cool story,
gotta get on YouTube
bro.
for
YouTube
tutorials.
I really feel like the Rocksmith thing is working for me. Is it okay okay with you if I just stick with Rocksmith for now, or will you not respect me until I go find the tabs for? Because I don't know. I just like playing Rocksmith.
I will just. It sounded like you were having trouble playing Rocksmith.
Well. Yeah.
So
I just have to move the TV though. It's gonna be fine. All right. Well, now I feel stupid because all the stuff I want to praise Rocksmith for, it's all about how it's a video game, or I mean, not a video game, but like a piece of software that helps you learn to play guitar and play it. But I guess that's not cool. That's not cool. So
it didn't exist. It didn't. Did it exist? It did not exist. It didn't exist when I was learning guitar.
No, it didn't. It didn't even exist when I was playing a lot of Guitar Hero and Rock Band and could have been convinced to start playing real guitars again.
Yeah. Yeah, it came out. It was like really the last one of these to come out.
But in general, I was like, I've been really impressed with the system. I mean, the guitar is a sonically imperfect instrument. So any time you have a piece of software that is trying to like read exactly what note you're playing, there's going to be issues. And I definitely have had problems like, with guitars, like not your guitar, but I tried Nick's guitar, and it was okay, except like it would become detuned so quickly that I would have to retune it like in between every song that I was doing.
Oh, I'm glad to know that my guitar stays in tune.
I mean, better than that other one for sure.
Yeah. Are you interested in me fixing that guitar up for you? I can do that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you'd have to let me be near you. But I guess we could try to figure it out.
Yeah.
And anyways, yeah, so...
Put in some locking tuners. You want some locking tuners?
Locking tuners? What is that? That's a locking tuner?
You know how when you put strings on a guitar, you give it a bunch of slack, and then you turn the machine heads around so that the guitar string wraps around the post several times,
obviously.
And that's what gives it the strength to not slip out of the tuning heads.
Okay.
A locking tuner, you don't do that. Instead of wrapping it around multiple times, there's a clamp and a lock, and you turn the lock to shut the clamp. And because you're not the wraparound is what causes a lot of the detune on guitars, because it pulls slack
it readjusts
from that.
Yeah.
And so locking tuners, first of all, they're easier to put new strings on because you don't have to do the wraparound thing.
Interesting.
And they don't have to be nice and neat. And then also because of that, when you bend the strings, and even over time, it doesn't really detune because it stays locked in.
But yeah, that first like week or two, I was playing it every day, like sometimes for an hour or more every day. That first week, I was so into it that I kept doing it every day, even though my fingers were throbbing for 7 days straight. And so yeah, now I have some calluses forming. Like basically that that whole period of throbbing pain was like me mushing the tips of my fingers until they died. And now, finally, it is shedding its skin like the snakes that they are. And I don't know. There's some more calloused skin underneath it, I guess. I don't know how much else there is to say about Rocksmith, but
it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's straightforward. I was really impressed with especially like the interface of like, how do you do Guitar Hero style? There are notes flying down a lane on a screen, but it's a whole guitar with 6 strings instead of just 5 buttons. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And it basically just handles that kind of in the way that you would imagine, where it just like, it has that it has one big gigantic lane that is the entire guitar neck, and it just kind of zooms in and pans around to the different sections as they come up. And if you're ever playing a section of a song where like you need to play something like down low and then up high, like back and forth, it will just kind of end up needing to put that whole guitar neck on the screen as you watch like notes that are basically pinpricks like travel towards you, but it works. It actually works surprisingly well. And so yeah, I've been really impressed with it as like as both a teaching tool and a music game. So it's been really cool.
I will say for new guitarists out there, playing till your fingers throb is fine. Playing when your forearm hurts is bad. Don't do that.
Oh, okay.
If forearm starts hurting, stop.
Gotcha.
Give it a break.
All right.
Because you will get tendinitis.
That is good to know. Luckily, I don't think I've had a lot of that. Or at least if I was feeling it, I then stopped.
Any pain in your wrist or forearm, especially on your fingering hand, on the fret hand, that is bad, and you should
that's bad news.
Play through that.
Bad news bears. That's what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Okay, good to know. Guitar instructor Keith. Thank you.
I've had it before. It's bad.
Okay. Oh, wait. Tendinitis. I guess I was thinking of arthritis.
Oh, okay. No, just tendinitis.
Yeah.
Not as
Well,
bad
it's
as
just
arthritis,
tendinitis.
'cause
I'll
it will
just go
away.
for it. It's fine. Number 4 is Hades. Hades, what a game. A game so much fun to play. And that's not... I didn't mean it like that.
Hades, what a game. So much fun to play.
That's not what I meant. So
It's not what you meant?
A game so fun to play. Oh, Hades, a game so fun to play. And
Let me count the ways.
I said a game so fun to play that it's number 4 on my list, despite being an action roguelike, which is not a game genre I traditionally like very much. Mostly because they always feel too hard. And Hades, it didn't feel too hard. It felt just normal hard, but not too hard, for a really long time. And it did eventually get too hard for me, and I did stop before I finished it. But I got closer than I thought I would. And hey, didn't you like Hades?
No.
No.
Not really.
Okay. Tell me about that.
So we played it on a snooze button. Because you were playing it and liking it, and so
Right.
I tried it on the snooze button.
Yes. Okay.
And I thought that was fine. And then I played for another little bit on my own and basically was like, this is fine. And then never really wanted to play again. I just kind of was done. I didn't find the story that people literally raved about very interesting at all. And I didn't find the combat extremely fun. And those are the 2 parts of the game.
And those are the 2 parts of the game. What I would say is I really liked the story. I guess I would say I liked the story.
I really didn't like the Hades kid. What's his name?
Zagreus.
I didn't like
Zagreus.
I didn't like the performance there.
Yeah, I think
kind of at all.
The performance left something to be desired, I would say. Yeah.
And there was something. I know this is persnickety. There was something about the way that the microphone sounded.
Whoa, that's
Like,
pretty persnickety.
I know, but it really took me out of it. I could hear the microphone in a way that I
Interesting.
don't want to hear in a performance like that. And it just like sounded like someone. It sounded like that guy had a different mic than everyone else. And so I didn't like him as a character. I didn't like the performance. I didn't like the combat, and the story did not interest me.
And could I tell you, almost certainly did that guy have a different microphone from everyone else. So like whoever the sound designer for Hades was, they just heard you say that and went, "Fuck! I fucking knew it! Shit!"
Wait, did you also notice this then?
No, but I'm thinking like a lot of voiceover work these days is just, I mean, not even like before the I don't mean the pandemic, but like a lot of voiceover work these days is just done by people having mics in their own house and they record it.
Yeah. And so it's normally not a problem that different people are using different mics if the person mixing it is mixing it right. But I don't know. It just like sounded like everyone was on like a condenser mic and this guy was on like a dynamic mic and also maybe a worse mic. I don't know. Like I can't tell you exactly what was wrong with it without knowing what the mic was and how it was different, or even if it was true. But it did give me this weird quality of this guy's voice has a different tonal quality than everyone else's.
What if it was done intentionally because Zagreus stands apart?
Wow,
isn't that something?
That is deep.
So here's the thing.
But yeah, I played 3 hours of this game.
My thing with the story is that I think that the characters are all like likable. Is that what I'm going for?
Strong.
Yeah, as you can tell, I feel very strongly about the story of this game. How did this game end up so high on my list? It is wild.
Did I convince you that this game's bad?
Maybe.
By accident?
No, I don't know. Okay, I'll be honest. It's only that high on the list because it came out this year. Black Mesa.
Who's the hero now with the 5-game list?
Still me. The hero who made a list of 10 games, even though not all of the games are incredible. It was just a down year, Keith. You can't fucking, every time the games dip, you just, abandon ship, we got to change the format. Put 10 games on that list.
Look, I mean, I guess it depends on your perspective, whether it's more courageous to show up with a list that says this year did not deserve a 10-game list, based on the games that I played, it only deserved a 5-game list, whether it's more courageous to have 3 full games that you couldn't talk about.
And yet you still did bring 10 games, didn't you?
But only 5 of them are on the list.
Right. I mean, it really just sounds like you filed the list numbers off of places 6 through 10 and called it a 1 through 5 list.
No, we didn't have real discussions about these games.
We did.
I will draw your attention to Genshin Impact, which we only criticized pretty much.
Well, it's because it's only worth criticizing.
Right. Which means it's not worth going on a Game of the Year list. But I did want to have some more stuff to talk about.
Anyways,
so that the podcast wouldn't be too short.
Right, exactly. And I can see why you would have had that concern.
Right, because I expected us to each have 10 games to talk about.
Right. And, I mean, are you being genuine when you said that you brought the extra list in case the podcast was going to be too short?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
What? But Keith, just last year, we had a 7-hour podcast where we just had 2 top 10 lists. You didn't think that would be an opportunity to cut the podcast shorter?
No.
Okay. In Hades, I think people were raving about the story. And,
I mean, nonstop raving.
I can't claim to know a lot about what people were saying about the story. What I would say is, when I was playing Hades, I felt like raving about the story, with the addendum that it was all for a roguelike. This story's great for a roguelike. The writing is really good and engaging.
You know what it was
for
bad
a
for? A Supergiant game.
Ooh. But here's my
Hades
thing,
is
though.
a better story than Spelunky.
I haven't played any of those games. So, there you go.
You played Bastion, right?
Only maybe half of it or something.
So it's got I've only not played Transistor of Supergiant's games, but I think all of the ones that I have played have been really good, especially Pyre, which is one of the best stories in a game that I've played.
Wow.
And then you got me, not you. This is a vague you. You got me. Hades has a better story than Spelunky,
right?
But it's worse than the work that they are normally doing.
Yeah. Well, and so when I went into Hades, as I couldn't really, like I said, I only played a bit of one game, and it was 10 years ago or more. So I didn't really remember it. So I was going in, most of my expectations for the game were all centered around roguelikes I didn't care for. And then when Hades wasn't like those games and instead was better, I was like, I love this game.
Yeah. You liked Rogue Legacy.
It's true, I did like
years
Rogue
and years
Legacy.
and years ago.
Yeah, I did do that.
This is okay. So did you beat the final boss?
No, I couldn't get there. I was
so the
too
thing
bad
of the
at
story
the game. Wait, real
that
quick, I think everyone is confused by why I have baseball on my list. But let me just add an L back in there. It was Blazeball. Don't worry, I didn't actually become a sports fan this year.
So Seti mentioned something which I actually knew, and I don't know if Kylie knew this. You're not supposed to beat the story one time. You're not supposed to beat it one time. You're supposed to beat it
10 times.
10 times or something.
Yeah, I didn't.
And And that's where, and according to SETI, neither of you got to where the story happens. When you beat the boss, that's not the end of the story. That's really the start of it. That's a bad place to put a story. That's a bad
place to put a story.
You did it wrong. You did your story wrong. Because the story shouldn't be so boring that I quit before it starts.
Now, what's funny is I am looking at Hades on my list, and I'm feeling like it shouldn't be that high on my list. But then I'm looking at the games below Hades, and I'm like, I don't know that these games should go in front of it either, though. Because I guess I didn't... So Rocksmith, I would put ahead of it, but putting a game from not this year in the top 4, it just seems like it's too much. So it's back at number 5. And number 6 here, Black Mesa I did really like, though. I really liked Black Mesa.
I think you would feel perfectly comfortable switching Black Mesa and Hades.
I think I would feel comfortable doing that. So I'm going to do that.
So, I understand that people really like this game. I don't want to sink anyone's ship here.
That feels so much better. I really like that.
But I don't know, if your game ruled, then I would understand having this kick-ass game and getting to the end and being like, wow, there's actually a ton more story left. But the game, for me, the game didn't rule. The game ruled.
I think for a lot of I think at least it didn't rot.
Oh yeah.
But I think the reason some people were so over the top about Hades is because for a lot of people they did have that experience where they went, this game is so incredibly fun to play and I really like the story, and now I just got to the end and there's like all this more story.
Yeah, I understand that perspective exists. I really cannot see it. I cannot.
You really don't think it's fun to play?
I think it is. I think it is barely fun to play.
Wow, barely.
So it is like, if it was any less fun, it wouldn't be fun. You know what I mean? It's like as little fun, which is not enough fun for me to keep playing.
Hades, barely.
I got to the second boss, and I don't think I didn't try. That sort of just fell off of it.
Oh yeah. So for me, I guess this is surprising actually. I never got past the next boss. The Minotaur and what's his face? You know the one.
No.
Ah, come on. Come on, Keith. Who's the one?
I literally don't know.
You know who. I don't know. Theseus. It's Asterius, the bull of Minos, and Theseus.
I beat the first boss. I beat Meg second try. First try was on stream. Second try, I beat, and then I kept going until I died, and that was the last time I played. I got through almost that whole next world on that second life.
At some point, the other Furies show up, and then every time you get to the end of the first area, it's either Meg or one of her two sisters, like randomly.
Okay.
And they're slightly different, but weirdly, I think both easier than Meg, which is weird. But maybe that's just me personally. Maybe nobody else feels that way.
Yeah.
So that was my number 6 game, Hades. Now my number 3 game. Actually, I need
Hades in front of Blazeball and Kentucky Route Zero.
I need to pee real quick.
Okay.
But it's going to be super fast. So just give me an extra long drum roll for my number 3 reveal.
Okay.
It's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Yay! Pro Scatter.
I before we hit this, I have to ask,
Tony, you know,
Hades above Blazeball and Kentucky Route Zero?
you know, yeah.
After all that KRZ talk,
again, it's the listen, it's gonna be higher on our overall list. I don't know. I could put it above Blazeball, but I don't really feel like that's the change you're looking for.
no. I mean, I just think quantitatively, at least, the effort put through talking about Kentucky Route Zero versus what you had to say about Hades, which is basically like, it was fun, but maybe I should move it down.
Okay.
But now all you said about it.
Okay, and I just moved Kentucky Route Zero up one. And this, I think Kentucky Route Zero and Hades are really good opposites for me, where like Hades is a game where like I'm not that excited about the game intellectually, it's just fun to play. Kentucky Route Zero is a game that I think is fascinating and really well written, and I can't stand playing it. Like, it's very unpleasant for me to play. I really dislike the experience of playing Kentucky Route Zero. But now you have those
thoughts of having played it already forever.
That is really... It's not for any fault of Kentucky Route Zero. It's just, for me personally, it's not above Hades. But on our overall Game of the Year list, it will be above Hades, which I also co-sign.
Do you have anything to say about Hades besides me complaining about it?
I said the good parts I liked about Hades, didn't I?
Okay. I honestly don't think you did.
It's just a really fun action game, you know, like the controls are good, it's responsive, the weapons are fun and varied, and you know, you get a lot of interesting you know, the power-ups you get from the different gods in each run are all pretty cool, and I don't know, it's just engaging. I really like playing it, and it held my attention a lot. And it's just too hard. Every roguelike, I mean, I guess I'm just terrible at games, because everyone else can beat Hades. I can't beat Hades.
Did you put how much couldn't you get past? Like, how long were you at this wall where you couldn't get past it?
Pretty long. Like, I mean, you know, I think what it was is like I kind of hit a wall, but I had a lot more room on my upgrade tree and stuff. And so I like kind of kept hammering against that wall going like, one of these upgrades is just going to put me over the top and then I'll be good. And that never happened. And now I'm kind of like out of upgrade runway, but still stuck. And so it's like, well... I guess I'm, you know, and then of course, because I've been stuck on it for so long, I just don't have fun with it anymore. So I'm just kind of done with Hades, but it was a great again, action roguelikes, totally not my thing. Like, what was that game? Another one of these that came out recently that everyone was raving about.
Spelunky 2.
No, Dead Cells. Like, Dead Cells is a great example of a game where, like, people were talking about how sublime the gameplay loop is. It's like, oh, it's just so fun to play. It's like you pick it up and you can't stop. I hated Dead Cells. I couldn't stand it. And, like, and so that is, like, my typical, like, response to a roguelike that is like Dead Cells. And I feel like Hades has a lot of, like, crossover with the design of Dead Cells. And yet I was... Maybe I was even just like, maybe part of the reason Hades is on the list is because I was so pleasantly surprised by how much I didn't dislike it. I don't know.
Seti wants to know if you turned on God mode, which it buffs your stats.
No, that's for fucking babies, Seti. No.
Well, but you are a baby.
Yeah, but that just means no. You know, I honestly, it hadn't occurred to me. Like, that's my honest answer. I didn't think of it. It buffs your stats by like 1/60th or something. Like, it buffs it a really small amount. So it makes the game easier, and then I think it maybe does give you a small...
Okay, there we go. Yeah, 2% resistance each death.
Yeah, so you just get stronger and stronger each time you die until eventually you're, I assume, invincible, basically. And it's great that that's in the game. You know, same thing we discuss every time Courtney comes on and is like, why don't you cheat? And because the answer is just, I don't have fun when I use a cheat. and so I
But that's
don't
not
want
a cheat.
to.
That's an accessibility option for people who can't beat the game.
I wouldn't enjoy it.
SETI says it caps out at 80% damage
Okay.
distance. I think the idea is that the gradual increase, though, like you might only die 3 or 10 more times between putting it on.
Nah, I'm just not into it. The whole idea, I don't like it. And that's just, it's why it's an option, and you can turn it on if you want, and I don't want. Here's something SETI, because now, SETI wants to play. How about this, SETI? A thing SETI said earlier in the chat, when I said I want to go back to Half-Life 1, SETI was like, oh, Kylie, you do not want to go back to OG Half-Life 1. It is rough, and rough with a capital R. And I would like to say, SETI, you don't know me, because that's exactly what I want to go do. Get the fuck out of my face, SETI. Just kidding. I love SETI. They're nice.
You do like to play broken old games.
Yeah, I love to play broken old games. What a ridiculous thing to say. What a silly thing to say, SETI. You should know better.
To be fair, it is more ridiculous that you want to go play broken old games.
That
is the worst thing. I think it's better to steer people away from broken old games than to encourage them.
Okay. But here though, I feel like maybe I see a through line between these two ideas that maybe most people wouldn't see, which is that a lot of my enjoyment of games comes out of feeling like I overcame the challenge that was there, even if it was an unfair challenge. So like busted old game. Not that I don't think Half-Life is like a busted old game that is like unfair.
You did describe Original Zen as almost unplayable.
Right. But like I said, that's the last 5% of a very long game. There's a whole game leading up to that that's fun to play. And hey, I still feel like playing Half-Life, so maybe I'll just get into Half-Life 1 Original and we'll see how I feel about it. I don't know. But
Tony Hawk's Pro Scatter.
Yeah. But it, so like, if I beat broken ass Half-Life 1, I feel like a sense of satisfaction because I beat the challenge, even if the challenge wasn't very fair. Whereas like Hades, whether or not I feel like the challenge, is unfair or not, if I turn on God mode, I don't feel like I beat the challenge that was there. I feel like I utilized an option that was available to me that they gave to me in case I wanted to use it. Like I'm not mad at anyone else for using God mode. It's just not for me. That's all. Does that make sense? Are you satisfied with this?
I'm as satisfied as I'm going to be. I don't think that's what
I'm looking for.
For me, a game that I wouldn't want to use an accessibility option to beat and instead would give up on wouldn't be on my top 10. But that's just for me.
Well, I guess it's a roguelike, though. Hades is maybe an exception because it's so narratively heavy, but like Hades is one of the only roguelikes I can think of where you like would expect someone to finish it, like to see the end of the story. Like anytime anyone else is playing a roguelike, I'm not like, oh, did you finish it? Because in my mind, like roguelikes are unfinishable. Again, I know this isn't everyone's perspective, but it's mine.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely when I play a game like this, a Spelunky or whatever, my expectation is that I finish it.
Wild.
I didn't finish Spelunky, but that was my goal, was to finish it.
Tony Hawk's Pro Scatter 1 and 2. We all know Tony Hawk is known as... Yeah, he's known as one of the greatest improvisational vocal jazz artists of his time. And we all love him for that. And they made a video game remake of it, and it's great.
I didn't play it. It didn't strike me this year. Despite being a fan of those games, for sure.
Yeah. I was a big fan of those games, and wow.
You invited me to play, not with you, but you said you should play,
and you were
just
like,
kind of like,
no, thank you.
Just wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, we did. This is another one we did a snooze button for. It was kind of unfortunately it was before my PC upgrade, and so my PC was really struggling with the stream that whole time, so the frame rate's not awesome, but I think I did real good on those levels, so I was proud of that.
Sure. Good music, got that Tony Hawk thing that it does.
Obviously, Tony Hawk, classic arcade-style skateboarding game, was like totally wild and revolutionary at the time, and I've always loved those games, and the later games 3 and Underground I liked even more than 1 and 2, and these
Uncommon.
are what's that?
That's uncommon.
Is that uncommon? I guess that's
I believe
uncommon.
that people generally like 2 best.
I think people like 2 best, but I don't think appreciation for 3 or Underground is uncommon.
No, I think Underground is maybe people's least favorite, but I think 3 is the best. I'm pretty sure. That
Underground is not people's. People like Underground. There's different segments. Like, we've spent a lot of time.
Everybody only likes 2.
We've spent a lot of time listening to game podcasts from people that are like 5 to 15 years older than us, and so they have the opinion that the older ones are better. But I think people our age are often maybe less 3, but like Underground was like a big one. I would say like most common for people, their favorite is 2, and then I think second most common is Underground.
As someone of or under your age group, I always never liked Underground, or not like I
like
hated
Underground,
it, but
okay.
I that was the first one you could get off your board, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the first. That's the first one I didn't like.
I don't understand why everyone brings this up as though it changed the game. It didn't change the. It was.
It's not that it changed. It's not that
game.
it specifically changed the game, but it's just the touchstone that I have of it. I remember it as the one you could get off your board, and also as the one that we were kind of talking about this with the when we were talking about Cyberpunk during the Silent Hill thing, where like people have a tendency, I think, to like connect everything they think about a game to why they don't like it, even if that doesn't make sense. I don't know that it makes sense to connect being able to get off your board with why you don't like Tony Hawk Underground.
No, the reason
but it is definitely the 2 things I know about it.
The reason I responded this way is because I keep hearing this. If someone doesn't like Underground, this is exactly that's the exchange. They go, that's the one where you can get off your board, right? And then someone goes, yeah, and they go, yeah, I don't like that one.
Yeah. I don't think that it's because of the getting off your board that I don't like it.
I think maybe so I guess I'm wrong that people like Underground the most. I mean, there's a lot of love for Underground out there for sure, but
because I mean my favorite skating game, I like the skate games best.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, and you can absolutely get off your board in those ones.
Right.
So it's definitely not just the ability to get off the board.
Is a big it's a thing that you do a lot if you're skateboarding. You don't actually stay on the board for that long. Like, unless you're like skateboarding down the street or something. It is
part of the arcade thing where it's like, I am not Tony Hawk skateboarding. I am I am the skateboard with a man on me who does tricks.
I guess the way I think people that I find the get off the board thing distasteful is because it's like, okay, this is the 5th Tony Hawk game, so the series is already feeling like it's getting long in the tooth, and so that, it's like the getting off the board feels like the jump the shark moment, like when they, I don't know, jumped a shark in Happy Days, or, bring on like a new wacky
That's
kid.
so weird. That literally came up with yesterday. I was talking about the jump the shark thing in Happy Days.
A sitcom will add like a wacky next door neighbor kid who's goofy and he's so silly, in season 7 when things are getting boring or whatever. But I think in my mind, I always think about how the Tony Hawk game from the early days I really disliked was 4, because 4 changed it from being these like really short 90 or 2-minute sessions into it's just an open world and you go around and you get like I don't know, like tasks or so, you get challenges. You go around an open world, an open level, and you get challenges from people that are standing around like they're MMO quest givers, and then you do it. But you couldn't get off the board. So you had to. It's like you're driving a little car under your feet, and you're trying to stop and talk to people, but it's too hard because you're on the car, and the car wants to keep driving. So when in Underground they let you just step off of the car and just talk to the person, it resolved all of these issues.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think that you're right that people... I'm not saying you're wrong that people say that they don't like that they let you get off the board. I'm saying that they're both... No, it is true that...
I understand your perspective.
I guess what I'm saying is all of those people probably also like the skate games.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't like Thug because you can get off the board. I prefer Skate 2.
Thug is short for Tony Hawk's Underground for the uninitiated. Yeah. So what I love, I
like American Wasteland.
I did really, I did really love Tony Hawk 1 back when it came out. I kind of the way I always remember it is that I missed out on 2, but I don't think that's actually true. I think I just never cared for it because I learned about Tony Hawk 1 because some of my friends got it, and then they got the sequel when it came out, and I played it at their house again and was like, nah, I just want to play the first one. So I just don't like 2, and I don't care for it as much in this remake either. But what I love about Tony Hawk's... Is there more to this title? Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remastered? I don't know.
Reskated,
retrucked. What I love about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 remix, final mix, the remixing, is that it takes some of these gameplay systems that were added in Tony Hawk 3, and maybe not Underground, but they were added in Tony Hawk 3.
It doesn't have anything else to the title, by the way.
It adds in these elements from Tony Hawk 3 that I felt like really completed the combo system. You know, it adds like the spine transfer and the revert that just lets you... It goes from... You know, like Tony Hawk 1 was very hard to do any kind of combo that wasn't a grind. Like the only real combos you could do in Tony Hawk 1 were grinding on different things. And then Tony Hawk 2 introduces the manual. So now like you can just string grinds together with manuals. And then in Tony Hawk 3, they add the revert, which is, it's not anything. It's just like when you come out of a vert ramp, your character can like spin their skateboard around and then do a manual. And Tony Hawk 3, they decided that this is a combo move somehow. Basically, they just let you combo vert stuff into manuals and grinds, which then makes you able to like combo any kind of trick like throughout the whole level. And that was always the most fun way to play that game to me. So it's like they took Tony Hawk 1 and 2 and made it Tony Hawk 3, which is basically what I wanted. It's got basic... I mean, if there's any songs missing from the soundtrack, and I have heard that there's at least one, whatever it is, I don't know what it is. So it's got all the songs you want from Tony Hawk 1 and 2. It's got a whole ton of new songs that are also great. Graphically, it's beautiful. They have all the they have all the original pro skaters from the first 2 games, but they're older now, which is really funny. They have some new skaters that I, of course, haven't heard of. And they have Creative Skater. I guess my main gripe with the game, if I had to pick a gripe, and it's run button, so I do. The gripe is that the character models are not very good looking. Like the models of the pro skaters, in some cases, barely look like who they're supposed to be. Like, obviously, Tony Hawk looks great because he's Tony Hawk and it's his game. Like Letitia Buffoni, maybe, who is my daughter's favorite character to play as. Atrocious character model. It's just so horrendous.
There's some appeal.
Huh?
There's someone likes it.
Someone likes it. Oh, she likes it because the character model is dressed head to toe in all pink, including pink hair dye. So my daughter's like, that's the one I want to play as.
Do you tell her that's facile? It's a facile.
Yeah, I was
way
like,
to make a
you're
decision.
a stupid little baby for wanting to pick that character. And I said, she was like, I want to be the pink girl. And I said, no, pick again. You got to do it better.
Yeah. When you think before you speak.
Yeah. They have a transgender
This is how
skater.
parents
That's
talk to
cool.
children.
Yeah, this is how I
IMO.
always talk to. They have a trans mask pro skater in there. That's cool. Leo Baker.
Is the question mark part of the name?
No. Yes. Wait.
That would be funny though if someone was named if they changed their last name to include a question mark. So like if my name was Keith Carberry,
I think Steve in Minecraft originally had a question mark. It was Steve?
Steve?
And then that was weird. Strangely, it was too confusing for people and they took the question mark off.
Hi, my name's Steve.
I think it might have been one of those things where they like people pulled the name out of like game files or something. Like, you know, there was no name in the game, but they like found the game file and it was like Steve with a question mark or something. I don't know.
I like it.
So, and in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, the reimagining, there is a create a skater system in there. The system for making your face is like kind of underbaked by modern standards, but when games go nuts with like a zillion different sliders for your every inch of your face, it gets really weird. I just wish the faces that they had were like a little better. But at the same time, like
There's definitely a really tough to place medium.
yeah. And there's here's a real gripe is they add this whole cosmetic system to the game where you're like there's tons and tons of gear to unlock, like hats and shirts and pants.
Wow.
And
shirts and pants
and shoes and backpacks, maybe. And so this is their money. This is their microtransaction model. Like you can unlock tons of these items, but wait, am I wrong about this? Is there not a real money thing? I actually am not sure. I bet you can. I'm sure you could pay money for cosmetics.
Be hard pressed to find a game in 2020 that you couldn't give some money to.
Yeah. So
I literally don't know, but that's my take on it, is that if it seems like maybe you could pay for something, you probably can.
Yeah, so my complaint is just that for the totally astronomical number of cosmetic items in the game, there feels like a real lack of variety somehow, especially in the female clothing items.
This is not a super uncommon problem with skate games where it's like, here's 90 of the same t-shirt. Which one do you want?
Right.
And there'll be like some standouts, but like, this is not.
Yeah,
this makes sense to me.
There is like, there's like 25 baseball caps in the game, and all of them are snapback except for 2 that are fitted, or there's only 1 fitted and it's camo. And I was like, really? But we needed 85 snapbacks. All right, it's fine. Same thing with like, there's a million different like masculine style t-shirts, but there's like 2 feminine style t-shirts in the whole game, and like one of them is very hard to unlock. So they could do better with that, and a lot of it, they're trying to do like their cross marketing thing. So it's like a lot of the cosmetics you can buy are like, I assume, real world clothing items that are endorsed by the different skaters. You can get Letitia Buffoni leggings, and there's probably like a Kareem Campbell hat or some, it's like stuff like that. Letitia Buffoni. That might gain traction. That's something. That's something.
That's marketable. That's money. Hey, that's money.
Tony Hawk's got a million different skateboard decks and shirts that he wants you to buy in real life, but also in the game. But mostly it's just it's Tony Hawk, and it's goddamn fun to play, Keith. It's more fun than even the original. You know me. I'm a real tough sell on a remake. This is one of my favorite remakes ever. It's a very, very good one. I especially liked in the same way the skaters are older. Some like you go back to the same levels and they feel like they've been updated for 2020. So it's like the school is like way more colorful and stuff the way schools tend to be now. They used to be a little bit more drab. Also, there was a screen saying that school would be back in session after the pandemic and everyone should wear masks and socially distance or something. And, I think it's really funny. They have the mall level from Tony Hawk 1 that is now an abandoned mall level. And it's all like,
that's great. That's a really good touch.
It's such a good touch. Like all the ceiling tiles are broken and there's like all the plants are overgrown and it's very, very good. It's just such a great touch. Because, it's so true to life, right? It's like in 1998, that mall was open, and now it's 2020, and it is shut down. And the only people in it... Like any
subculture.
Yeah, the only people in that mall now are skateboarders.
Like any subculture, skating is full of very cool people and real shit heels. But skateboarding is always at its best when it's cool punks who have something interesting to say, who also can do this impossible thing.
Mm-hmm. And that is like this game.
Not to say that this game is super political, but having the and also is not made by skaters, but I think that there's a little bit of sharpness to being like, we've got to make this an abandoned mall.
Yeah, I would say, that's been my read on that game in general. It's just like tons of smart choices that felt like the people making the game had a good head on their shoulders and perhaps finally now a good budget with which to create the game. Activision.
The worst.
Oof. Number 2.
Do you ever feel like Activision gets away with a lot of bullshit because people are obsessed with memeing about how bad EA is?
No, never.
No?
Yeah, no, it's so obvious. Activision's way worse than EA. It's hilarious to me.
Oh, so you do feel you are agreeing with me?
Yes. Absolutely, okay. Yes. What is my number 2?
Gamers are total fucking morons.
You
dipshits.
Final Fantasy VII Remake. Wow, another remake on this list. This is the third remake.
The remake hater's dead.
It's a 3-make. And another one if you include Blazeball, because that's just a remake of Baseball, and Conduct Together is a remake of some other train game.
Well, is it a remake of a sport, or is it the world's first splort?
You're right, I'm sorry. It is the world's first splort. Shit. I think another such a great thing about Blazeball is I forget how this came up, because this is a great example of like the evolving, like ongoing texture and story of Blazeball is I think I had some question of like, why is this like this or something like that, and you were like, sportsmanship, obviously, and I was like, what? Sportsmanship? And I think Keith was like, oh god, she doesn't even know about sportsmanship. But it turned out it was because by the time I got into Blazeball, the book had already been opened and sportsmanship was dead. So I was not introduced to sportsmanship, and this was like 2 weeks into Blazeball. It was
Technically, sportsmanship didn't die until the peanut incident.
Yes, I'm sorry, the peanut incident.
And it was added in because of the sour grapes. And I get it. I was sour about that season too.
Yeah, but that's so funny to me though, that like, so people found a way to exploit this peanut thing, and one of the creators of the game, said, created the story event that sportsmanship was dead because he was upset that people had done that. But then it ended up being the catalyst for like the game really finding its own kind of wacky voice in that way, and it's, though the peanut thing maybe continued to cause issues.
The peanut thing ruined that season.
That season, sure. I mean, I wasn't there for that season, so it's fake to me.
It was unfortunate because Friends of the Table was a sponsor for that season.
No, it was the next season.
We sponsored 2 seasons.
Yeah, it was the next 2 seasons.
No, the first one was the peanut one, and then the following one after the peanut one.
Maybe sponsored 3 seasons.
Maybe. I would say that my guess is better than yours.
I wouldn't say that. I love my guesses. I would say, I mean, I am just disagreeing with you, just because that's just what we do, and we do it without thinking about it at this point. But, you know, someone else...
I always think about it. I disagree. I always think about it.
Okay. Someone else with... I don't even... See, I already don't remember what you think... Like, I don't... You said I always think about it. I already don't remember what you're saying you think about, because I was not really paying attention to the words coming out of my mouth.
I think about our disagreements.
You think about our disagreements.
I'm very careful and thoughtful with how I disagree with you.
Oh, yeah, that's not true.
I disagree. I thought about it and I disagree.
I don't remember what I was saying anymore.
The tapestry, the unfolding tapestry of Blazeball.
Nah. Final Fantasy VII Remake?
Sure. What about it? What do you have on it?
Oh, I enjoyed it a lot.
Nice.
You know, Final Fantasy VII was a game that meant a lot to me as a young babe, and now as an old babe, I like Final Fantasy VII Remake a lot. Also,
so Final Fantasy VII is a sort of semi real-time strategy.
I didn't finish it.
Turn-based.
Yeah, I would call it half turn-based. Even though...
Turn-basedy.
Yeah, it's turn-basedy. Yeah. So Final Fantasy VII Remake, it, you know, I'm sure everybody knows, it takes the early Midgar section of the Final Fantasy VII story, blows it out into a big, 50 to 60 hour RPG in its own right, just that early segment of the game.
Did you finish it?
I did not finish it. I played it nonstop when it came out, and then I got to... Oh, wow. Okay, I'll tell you the story of what happened, and I'm fine with it, but I know it'll drive you totally bonkers.
I already know what it is. You got too busy
right.
playing the original Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
You're
was
right, that
playing,
does drive me crazy.
Yeah, so I was... I think I was... Before the game came out, and in anticipation, maybe not anticipation, as much as like... I know that for me, enjoyment of a remake usually comes out of being able to just like compare it to the original, like beat for beat. Like if I'm playing a remake and I'm saying to myself, I can't remember if this was in the original or not, it's like that drives me crazy. I hate it, and that's why I don't like remakes. So I think I was playing the original because I wanted to have that fresh in my head, and I enjoyed that a whole lot. And the remake came out, and I enjoyed that, and I was kind of like trading off back and forth on the two, and I decided to go with finishing the original one for reasons I can't totally remember / don't really care about remembering. And so I did finish it.
Were you having more fun with it? Is it just that you liked the original more still?
I would say I was maybe enjoying it a bit more just because I have the personal connection to that original game. Because it had been I had replayed the early segments of that game a few times more recently, but like once you got like out the like after Midgar part of Final Fantasy VII, I hadn't played since like middle school. So I felt like I was rediscovering a game I really cared about. So that was really fun.
Well, and that makes sense because you did go through a period of disavowal.
Yeah, somewhat I did go through, a period. I think a lot of, I think the naysayers out there, they got into my head a little bit. Final Fantasy VII was one of those controversial games because I was not a forum posting individual at the time of Final Fantasy VII's heyday. Thank God.
What year is that?
97.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know when the heyday of posting about Final Fantasy VII was. It might not have, things were a bit slower back then. It wasn't like release date 1997, but but I think the people who didn't care for Final Fantasy VII, who then had to live through the Final Fantasy VII community happening online, I think they still carry that pain with them. And I think they're really negative to my beautiful, perfect, unimpeachable game that has no flaws whatsoever.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
What?
Is Final Fantasy VII not a lot like reading a book?
It can be.
What makes it not a nightmare for you to play?
Well,
is it just because it's a book you've read 9 times or whatever?
No, I mean, maybe this was why I decided to, like, when I felt the energy within me, when I felt that I had finishing Final Fantasy VII original in me, I wanted to utilize that to do it, while I had it, because it could have just, for all I knew, it was going to walk out the door, because it does take a lot for me to be able to play through a text-based, a JRPG in general, because they're so long, but especially a text-based one.
Yeah. I tried playing, I downloaded, one of the games that I've been playing on my Series X has been Dragon Quest XI, subtitled An Elusive Age?
Echoes of an Elusive Age.
Echoes of an Elusive Age.
Yeah, all the English subtitles for Dragon Age are wonky.
This is sort of a tangent, but it is like a lot of reading, and I don't find that those games have very interesting things to read a lot of the time. And I'm also not people love this game. I'm also not finding it that fun to play.
To be honest, I enjoyed my time with Dragon Quest XI, but I did not find the story to be that compelling, and I am somewhat puzzled by its extreme popularity. I think we're finding out that turn-based JRPGs are back, and maybe people haven't noticed that, and so instead they keep saying things like, "Oh, Dragon Quest XI, it's so much better than those other turn-based JRPGs that I didn't care for," or something. I don't know what's happening. Oh no, Dragon Quest XI specifically, that game's deal was that it was like the first RPG Dragon Quest to get localized in America in like 4 Dragon Quest games or something.
Yeah.
Because I think 9, I don't know about 9, but definitely 10 and 9 and 10. 9 and 10 were like pseudo MMOs or something that like, it was like pseudo MMOs on the DS. So it's like it would have taken a ton of localization work for all the text, and then they would have had to like run servers for this series that they were convinced couldn't sell in America anymore, or something. So I think Dragon Quest fans were in a right state for a few years there when they had to watch 9 and 10 get released. I think multiple versions and multiple releases like in Japan. And they didn't get that. And that was tough for them. And I'm sorry, but it doesn't make the story of Dragon Quest XI anything to write home about. I'll just say that.
Jesse said, I played almost all of it, kind of loved it, stories which to me it's like, then what did you like about it? Because
which game?
I just kind of feel like turn-based games like that are maybe like, if it's not Pokemon, I'm just like, why would you ever play this instead of Pokemon? And I think that's just a me thing.
Yeah.
But anytime anything has more to do than Pokemon, I'm like, what's the point? Like, it's just not adding complexity to turn-based games like that. Just feels like you're gilding the lily, and it's like,
yeah, I get that sometimes. Yeah, like, for example, original Final Fantasy VII is like not the most well-balanced game of all time. Like, there totally are some ability. That game has like tons and tons of abilities, and some of them are like basically useless, but a lot of them aren't, so it's fine.
I think it's the idea. I think it's being like having like one or two or three characters fighting like multiple enemies just makes a single encounter take so long that it feels like I'm wasting my time.
But if you have 3 times as many attackers, aren't you doing 3 times as many attacks? And then, well, it's just an interesting perspective, because to me, Pokemon is the interminable game that is like very long and slow and boring, and like every battle takes way too long and stuff.
I'm sure it's just I honestly can't explain it. I wish that I could convince myself that it was just, I just have nostalgia for Pokemon and it keeps me liking a game in a genre that I otherwise don't like, but it genuinely doesn't feel like that's the thing.
Dragon Quest XI S has some kind of feature where like you can turn the game into like a 16-bit looking RPG game if you want.
Yeah, you totally can do that.
It's weird.
Yeah. It doesn't let you switch back and forth, which I find a big miss.
What? I thought that was
you can't
the whole thing.
Sorry, you can switch back and forth. Like I could reach chapter 4 in 3D and switch to 2D starting from the beginning of chapter 4, but I cannot have the same game file switching back and forth. It has to be 2 different game files.
It has to be 2 different game files?
If you switch, if you switch from one to another, you have to start a new game file from the beginning of a chapter.
Wild.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand why you would add that feature. I mean, I guess I do understand why you would add that feature. It's for old people that only want to play 16-bit RPGs.
But still want to have a PS4.
Maybe that was them trying to figure out how to sell more PS4s in Japan or something. Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, Final Fantasy VII.
We have not talked about the remake at all. We've only talked about the original.
Whoops. Yeah. So it's it.
Do you want to put the original on your list instead of the remake?
No.
Okay.
I
agree with your remake thing though. I don't even like cover songs.
There you go. I like honestly cover songs for a lot of the same reasons. So yeah, the remake. It's a fully big budget modern game. It's a 3D world. You're walking around. All the characters are they all look real nice, and they're all fully voiced, and
looking real nice.
And so it's just they just did a good job with it, Keith. It's real late, and I'm tired. Is that good? They did a good job with the game?
Yeah,
Are we good?
I have been trying to understand what people see in Final Fantasy. Has been like wringing blood from a stone for me.
It's
so
fascinating
I have
to
no
me.
constructive questions to ask.
That's interesting. I know we're not, and I already tried at this, so we're not going to be able to.
All my questions are just like, what do you do? What happens? Like, what is good about it? And no one has been able to satisfactorily tell me like what is the secret sauce of Final Fantasy that makes it one of the most popular and enduring franchises of all time.
Well, I think that's I feel like I certainly attempted to answer this question before, and
I have tried,
and I certainly could try to do that now, but I feel like that's still not talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake or Game of the Year. Because I'm not sure that Final Fantasy VII Remake, like if you ask me why do people like Final Fantasy, I'm going to start talking about the older games, Does that...
Yeah.
I'll say this.
Is it
because I look at you, and I see a boy what like a story in a game,
Yeah.
and I see a boy what like a Pokemon, which is a turn-based RPG, and I say,
Right.
a boy what like a Pokemon turn-based RPG, but who also like a story. That sounds like a Final Fantasy fan to me, and yet not. Which ones have you tried?
$15.
Oh, okay.
And I liked it.
Right. Okay.
I liked it until I stopped playing it. I didn't finish it.
Okay.
But I did like it. But I had problems with it. It felt wrong to me.
Well,
that didn't feel right.
That game, as a Final Fantasy fan, that game also felt wrong to me.
Like, the characters were just slightly hollow. The story was slightly wonky.
The story was totally bonkers. The systems were very
where they
weird.
And maybe it would do me to try it again. It also wasn't a turn-based game.
No, you don't have to. All the people that like that game the best are like, the story wasn't really finished, but it's fine because they're adding the rest of the story in later. And then they said, actually, we're not going to do that. So it's already basically like everyone agrees the story is unfinished. So
I liked what I played. It was on my Game of the Year list. I maybe would, in retrospect, I would maybe move it down. I don't think I would take it off. I have played. Seti just said maybe try Final Fantasy X. I played Final Fantasy X for about 2 hours back when it was new. It was totally unimpressed. And like that was like the king shit game of the generation as far as I was concerned. Like people's perspectives were.
I don't know.
I
feel like feelings on that
the
game
ball.
are pretty
Here's what it
mixed.
was. I saw that the ball game at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is awesome. Let
Yeah.
me try. And then it sucked. And then the next hour sucked. And then I gave up.
I mean, if you got to the part where you play the Blitzball game, that's like 5 to 10 hours into the game. So
yeah,
you
I was
play
being
it.
shown the game at a
Gotcha.
friend's house.
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
so I played it from there for about 2 hours.
Okay.
And didn't connect with a single thing.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of Final Fantasy fans would say, hey, if you want to try a good Final Fantasy, play 6. That's a 16-bit RPG, so your mileage might vary depending on how ready you are to get engrossed in a 16-bit RPG story. A lot of people hold that up as the best Final Fantasy game. I think it's,
You think it's 7?
I think it's 7. It's 7 for me. It's 7. Well, it's 10 for me. 10. Like, if I had to pick one of like which Final Fantasy do I think is the best, I would probably pick 10. But 7 is like my favorite, kind of, or it was my favorite. Maybe 10 is my favorite. I like them both.
There's this level of abstraction in a strain, not in as a whole, but in a strain of Japanese games.
Absolutely.
Where that I see similarities between the Final Fantasies that I have played and Yakuza 1 and Yakuza 1 Kiwami, Yakuza 1, which I hated and quit, and you all saw it, it's on tape.
They saw it.
Yakuza Kiwami 1, which was one of the best things that I played all year. They really, really fixed the shit out of that game. Honestly, tremendous game.
Wow.
It rides on the back of Yakuza 0, which you absolutely have to play.
And now I'm caught on this thing.
Game Pass. It's on Game Pass.
I already own it. It's fine. But I'm caught on this thing. Do I play it, or do we do it for run button for after Shenmue 2? Or I guess we're
it would take
signed up
us
for
4
Shenmue
years
3.
to play.
All right.
I put
And you already
70
played
hours
it.
into Yakuza 0,
Yeah.
and I put another 70 into Kiwami 1.
All right. So I definitely
Wait,
stop.
let me finish my thought about the abstraction, though.
All right.
So it's something that always felt off to me, but playing through Yakuza 0 and Yakuza 1 have made it feel a lot more familiar. And I didn't notice it until I started. I didn't notice it until the end of Kiwami 1 and starting 2, which is much different. They drastically reduce how abstract the game is in terms of like how the city feels and how the fighting feels. Like in 1, you actually walk into a store and buy something at a counter and walk out of the store, and you get into a fight and you end the fight, and it doesn't break away from your third person camera to do a loading thing. And this was something that I think bugged me or felt off about games that I've played before that I grew to understand and even appreciate in the Yakuza games. And so might do better. I might do better trying
maybe
a Final Fantasy now, but I don't know how big of a deal that was for me. I don't know.
So cards on the table. I full stop am done podcasting and want to finish this and walk out the door. So we do need to stop talking about old Final Fantasy games as much as I would love to talk about old Final Fantasy games for the next 3 hours. So okay. I want to revisit Final Fantasy with you, just not right now. We're only going to talk about FF7 Remake now.
Okay.
I would, I think in Final Fantasy 7 Remake, I'm trying to think like, what's the gameplay flow? So I guess the game is divided into these like walk around, you're in a town segments, and what I would call like a dungeon or like a gameplay area or something where it's, you're going down corridors and there's monsters and you fight them, and that's like kind of it. Boop, 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 boop. So, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know that. Yeah, this whole conversation about like what's appealing about Final Fantasy has now all like tripped up. Now I'm like, should I be explaining what is fun about this? I'm confused, but you
should say whatever you want to say about Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Right. About Final Fantasy VII Remake, for one, I will say that I really liked so I was totally turned off by the decision to make the combat real time. I don't prefer real-time combat in like in most. Well, okay. No, I'm sorry. That's wrong. What it was is that obviously I just really like the turn-based combat of the original game, and I'm really attached to it, and so I wanted the remake to also have that. And I was really confused at why they weren't going to do that, because I feel like turn-based RPGs are popular again in a way that they haven't been in many years, so I don't know why you use now as the opportunity to remake FF7 as like an action game, but the action part of it is great. It's so much more fun and competent than any Square Enix action game has ever been. It's miles ahead.
And it's only semi-real time.
Yeah, because you can pause the action whenever you want. It's not a full pause. It's like a super, super slow-mo pause, but it's so slow that you couldn't almost never... there's no time pressure at all for like how quickly you're using these menu options.
It's almost a real-time with pause game, which is kind of my style of choice.
Yes, yeah. It's basically real-time with pause.
The KOTOR style.
The KOTOR style. And I mean, it's certainly more real. It's more action than KOTOR, because KOTOR was like you select auto attack from a menu and then you watch it happen. Whereas this one, it's much more active. Yeah, so it's much better. I remember so little of Final Fantasy 15, but maybe that's the point. Like, it certainly is better than I remember FF15 being, and it's miles beyond. It's country miles beyond Crisis Core, which was the Final Fantasy VII PSP game, and that gameplay was atrocious. And like Kingdom Hearts, I've certainly had fun with, but it's much better. There's much more to it than Kingdom Hearts. That was more just like Kingdom Hearts feels like you have a stick that hurts people, and like all your other abilities are just like it's all a smoke screen. The Keyblade is the only useful item in that game, I feel like, but that's just because I'm not a hardcore Kingdom Heartser, I guess. But yeah, I totally I love how, yeah, and maybe this is why you wouldn't like it as much. the FF7 remake, Keith, is it is really, maybe it depends on how you want to play it. I bet if you wanted to stick to like only action and not pausing it very much, you'd probably have a fine time, and it totally works that way. As I lean more towards wanting to take my time and pause all the time, so I would do that. And so I think in the combat
the thing that I like, the thing that appeals to me about it is that it's staged as, it is not staged as a scene. You know, you don't go into it
doesn't break away.
It doesn't break away into I'm standing here, you're standing there thing.
Yeah.
Like the layout is the layout, whether you're in the fight or not, right? Mm-hmm. And I like that. I don't like the cut away to a battle stage.
Yeah, and of course that was just a necessity of technology back in the day. FF10 was the first time that the game had like it had some of that.
What if they did real time with pause Pokemon? Am I right?
Dude, hey, I don't have time to go off on a whole tangent about Game Freak. I mean,
I know.
Listen, you're preaching to the choir over here. Anyways, Final Fantasy X had a little bit. It had some battles where it wouldn't break away. You know, like if it was a story relevant battle, a lot of times enemies would just show up, and then the game would just get shimmery for a second, and then you were doing a battle. But not that much. But Final Fantasy VII, it's all no cutaways, no random encounters. It's all enemies that are just in the environment, and it's fun to play. What's great is that in Remake, all the characters have their own. All the characters feel really different in the way that they handle, and they have different abilities, whereas in the original FF7, I think one of the biggest criticisms you could level against it is that all of the characters were extremely samey in that game and had very little identity. And it's total opposite in Remake, where there's only 4 playable characters. There's Cloud, Tifa, Barret, and Aerith. And you rarely, if ever, have them all at once. You know, the story will dictate who is in your party at any given time, and it can really change the feel of the battles. Like when you halfway through the game or whatever, when you get to the sequence where Cloud gets cut off from Tifa and Barret and then meets Aerith, it had a little bit of a different feel in the gameplay in the original. But in Remake, it really changes things up because Aerith's style of gameplay is totally different from like Tifa and Barret, and it's really fun. It's so the battle system is really fun, and the story is largely well told and well acted. They did a much better job with it, honestly, than I was expecting. More than anything, like, it's a great game. It totally blew me away because my expectations were pretty low for this thing.
I remember that. A lot of people's expectations were really low, especially surrounding I'll go ahead and say it. The controversy about how much of Final Fantasy this game called Final Fantasy VII Remake contains.
How, like, is it a Final Fantasy? Like, people being like, is this really a Final Fantasy?
No, I mean, sorry, I should maybe rephrase it. How little of Final Fantasy VII is in Final Fantasy VII Remake
in terms of the overall story.
Completion percentage of the story.
Yeah, that's the thing. Going into it, I'm like, this is only a third of a game. Like, what the hell? You know,
or
it's like
less.
action. Yeah, it's like action-based combat. Their track record is terrible with that. Also, Final Fantasy games in general haven't been very good recently, and like
odds
now
were stacked against
them.
them.
It's gonna be only the part of. It's only gonna be a small part of the game, and blah blah. But the funny part is playing FF7 Remake. The idea that this was only the first third of the game was actually kind of exciting because it was so good It's, like playing Yakuza 0 or something and going like, oh, wow, I have Kiwami 1 and 2 after this. Like, great. Something like that.
I'm so pumped. I'm almost done with Kiwami 2, and 3, 4, and 5 remastered are coming to Xbox in like March or something. And I'm like, I'm going to have 300 more hours of this.
SETI saying, oh, sorry. I thought they were... I read a statement as a question.
Okay.
SETI was corroborating my thing about it playing better than FF15 or Kingdom Hearts 3. Yeah, that's fine. Kingdom Hearts 3 just came out. This is like Kingdom Hearts 3 just finished, and then they brought the director.
People thought that was kind of a stinker.
They directed the director of that game and maybe some of the team and moved it onto Final Fantasy VII Remake for them to like wrap it up like they were the closers or something. Or wait, no, was it the opposite? Was he working on FF7 Remake this whole time? I forget how it went, but yeah, basically the idea, like going into it being like, don't worry about this. We brought in the Kingdom Hearts 3 guy to finish it. I was like, oh boy, because I hated Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, you and kind of everybody.
No. There are many.
I've not heard a single person who liked that game.
There are so many people that love that game, and I have questions. I actually don't have questions because I know why they like it. I just extremely disagree.
Why do they like it?
Because they're sick in the head, Keith. I don't have time to get into
fucked
it.
Up. Yeah.
They're super fucked up. And they keep they keep that cross-dressing scene, and that's real fun in the remake. I was concerned about how that would go, and it was fun. It was a good time. Yeah, so just fun to play game. I really liked the story. I really liked this new presentation of an old story, and it kind of does that Resident Evil remake thing where there are bits of the story that are different that are, as a person who knows Final Fantasy VII, you're supposed to be like, wait a minute, that's not what happened. That's wrong. There's supposed to be a thing I haven't gotten to that's like a really one of those things, but I'm not even totally sure what it is. I think I know, but I don't know.
And the game has its criticisms, and we've talked about that. We did an episode of this game, didn't we? Was it a snooze button? What did we do?
We sure did a snooze, yeah.
Yeah, and so we talked about some of the things about maybe going a little bit light at the beginning with the bombing thing, and that they didn't really change Barrett. It was Barrett that people were like, they didn't really change Barrett very much, huh?
Well, I don't know. I can't. It's been a few months, so I already don't feel like I can comment that much on whether or not Barrett was changed. But I would say
this is just kind of what I remember from the time. Again, I really have not played this game.
My memory of it is basically like the Barrett character in like Barrett, a famously problematic character from Final Fantasy VII, who is a black character who I think fell into like a lot of negative stereotypes and stuff like that, and they I would say had an opportunity to really to fix that. I mean, fix is like a weird word because it's it's. Yeah.
Well, but then I remember my
things that are racially problematic
was that
like often rarely have an easy fix. So I hate to, it's not like they could have just flipped the make Barrett not racially problematic switch, but but a lot of people worked on this game for a lot of years. Exactly. It could have been much better than it was, and it wasn't.
But I will say that my only experience from Barrett had him totally being right about something and Cloud being a clown.
Yes, so that is the one thing Barrett totally has going for him, and perhaps even more so in the remake. So Barrett actually, now that I'm remembering this, he does have some really great moments in the remake, especially around him having the fullest and most, like the fullest understanding of basically class struggle and the ways in which like the Shinra Corporation is like basically oppressing. And
I mean he's meant to be, these people are meant to be real revolutionaries.
Yeah
they're terrorists,
right? Yeah, okay, so there was
This is a game where and that's what I think is the most interesting thing about Final Fantasy VII that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, except for to criticize the remake for sort of pumping the brakes on it a little bit, which is that this is a game where the protagonists are terrorists.
They did pump the,
and that's
they
cool.
pumped the brakes a tiny bit. They didn't pump the brakes as much as I was afraid that they would. That's another thing where, like, the depiction of Avalanche as like freedom fighter terrorists and that kind of thing, like I had heard rumblings that they had totally ruined it. So then when I played the game and found out that they hadn't totally ruined it, that I was like, oh, it's great.
So my impression, and correct me if I'm
better.
wrong, is that in the original, they plant and set off a bomb, and the bomb is bigger than they thought or something, and that's a problem. Or maybe it's just that they got found out and were like vilified for doing a bombing. And then in the second one, the bomb was like a false flag that Avalanche bombed themselves and blamed it on Avalanche.
That Shinra bombed themselves and blamed it on Avalanche.
Yeah. Right. Sorry. Yeah. Shinra bombed themselves and blamed it on Avalanche.
No. It's so. How did it go exactly? So you're kind of right. My memory is in the original, they set off a bomb and to blow up a power plant, a reactor.
Right.
And definitely, and the girl Jessie who sets up the bomb makes this comment of like, oh, the explosion was so much bigger than I expected, or something to that effect.
So, if you're building a bomb, you should know how big it's gonna be.
Yeah, she was like, I'm gonna put less explosive in next time, or something like that. And so I wish, God, I played both of these games this year.
I'll say, I know that you're having troubles remembering. So Ice Cream Jones says that the opening made it seem like they were going to pump the brakes harder than they did.
Right, yeah.
And Seti says, no, Avalanche absolutely planted a bomb in the remake. So this, I swear to God, this is something that I heard leading up to the release, or maybe even right after the release.
Yeah. So in the game, in the original game, they set off a bomb, and then Shinra kind of uses, like, Shinra, I think, uses... no, maybe not. They set off a bomb in the original, the end. And then in the remake, it's like, it's something like they plant a bomb, and then Shinra diffuses that bomb, and so it's kind of like you failed, but then they set off an even bigger bomb, and then use as like a false flag attack, and then used, kind of co-op that attack as like a way to tighten controls on the populace and that kind of thing, and to turn public sentiment against Avalanche for using too big of bombs or something like that,
instead of the socially acceptable smaller bombs.
What was it was something like
it seems slightly convoluted. I guess this is not. I guess I take no issue with that. Whatever.
Yeah, it ended up not being like a huge thing. It is kind of convoluted, but it was something to the effect of like, Avalanche wanted to set off a bomb that would just destroy the reactor, but instead Shinra set off a bomb that also killed tons of people, or something like that. But the idea that you could blow up a power plant and not kill people is already pretty facile. But
right.
So that is Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I just had a great time meeting up with these characters again. I had, like, much stronger emotional reactions to like reliving the story both in the original and the remake than I really expected, and so it was just been a great time. I had fun with it, and now that I'm thinking about it, I should go back and I should finish that game.
Yeah.
Do you have a number
one?
My breath.
Or did you stop at number 2?
I actually don't have a number 1. I stopped at number 2.
I guess podcast over.
No, hey Keith, what's my number 1?
I literally don't know.
Oh, okay. What number? You see this? Do you see this?
No.
Do you see this?
Oh, I'm seeing it now. Oh, the 2, the 1, 3.
It's bullshit. This is why you start the list at number 1, and we're going to relitigate this right now. No, it's Animal Crossing.
It's not my fault
New
that the indentation system is bad.
It's not.
Animal Crossing. I totally forgot about Animal Crossing.
New Horizons. Let me tell you about this game.
Great.
This is a game I played for like 200 hours this year or something without even meaning to. It was like I blinked and I had put 200 hours in this game or something. Animal Crossing is a game that traditionally, a series that I haven't had really strong positive feelings about. So I would say New Horizons is another game on my list where my expectations were really defied because I felt like they added a lot of extra systems and extra like quality of life, like usability changes in there.
It's almost embarrassing for Animal Crossing as a series that this one could be defined as fully featured.
It's totally embarrassing. Yeah, like for sure. And yeah, I don't even want to. I don't want to spend any time going off on a whole tangent about like people trying to convince themselves that Tom Nook is like a good capitalist or something. He's not. It doesn't matter how low his interest rates are. He is totally controlling your life. He gives you houses you don't ask for. He gives you debt that you never agreed to pay. Giving someone a first of all, nobody would ever give a 0% interest loan because that's not a real thing. And someone who gives you debt that you didn't ask for or agree to, but then gives you like a sweet deal on repaying it, that's not your friend. Kill the Tom Nook in your head. Tom Nooks don't exist. Kill the Tom Nook in your head.
Well, we disagree slightly, I think, on the Tom Nook thing for this game. For the previous game, where you are entrapped into being the mayor of this town you didn't mean to move to, and then everyone is a shithead to you for the whole game. Everyone's rude to you.
Okay, but see, the previous game, I don't know. Yeah, the previous 3 games, because they're all the same game.
Is the only one I've played.
The one before New Leaf was City Folk. I didn't play that. Whatever. But before City Folk, like, the original premise was you show up in town and Tom Nook goes like, hey, nice to meet you. I built you this house. You live here now. Here's all the money you owe me. And every time you repay your debt, instead of in New Horizons, he's like, hey, you paid off your debt. Great job. What do you want? What's the next thing you want to go in debt for? But in the original game, like it's basically, it started out as like, it felt like this like farce that was like a critique of capitalism, and they took out all the teeth. So now he's just like your best friend capitalist. Cause like in the original game, it was like, you know, he would give you a house you didn't ask for and make you pay for it. And then as soon as you repaid it, and you would think like, I'm debt free. I'm no longer beholden to this raccoon. You would go back to your house and it would have a new addition on it. And he would be like, hey, bud, I just expanded your house for you. You owe me $100,000 again. And, you know, like, he was literally a fucking slumlord. And it wasn't disguised. Like, I'm not reading into this. Like, that was the text of the game was, Tom Nook is here to fuck you. And then, like, they just kept pulling out the negative bits until people who are playing New Horizons are like, Tom Nook is it's like Jeff Bezos, but your best friend. Get the fuck out of here with this. You see how heated I am about Tom Nook? God, what a monster. What an absolute shitheel of a character.
I have not seen a ton of people defending Tom Nook. I have seen a lot of people criticizing the criticism of Tom Nook as not reading it as intentional, which I understand the idea of saying, like, you shouldn't criticize Animal Crossing for having this shithead character when the character is meant to be a shithead. But you are right fundamentally that the game also has nothing interesting to say about that Tom Nook is like this. because that's just the game. Like, the game is to get a bigger house. Whether or not Tom Nook is there making you get a bigger house or not, there's nothing to do in the game but pick stuff up and sell it for more money to get a bigger house, to put more stuff in, to buy with stuff that you pick up off the ground.
Right.
It's just a trading junk for stuff game, and that's what it is.
Yeah, and it's like you're doing all this labor that you're doing island labor for Tom Nook because he doesn't want to do it, so he'll pay you pennies for it. And this whole time he's literally tricked you into into building,
populating this island,
populating, managing, and maintaining his island. It's not yours. It's a joke. And to this criticism of Tom Nook, of being like, he's supposed to be like that. That's the point of the character, is that he's a capitalist monster who entraps you into all this thing.
Yeah, but it's still stupid.
But it's not, though. Like in Animal Crossing Originals, yes, but what you're saying is true. Is like there's no more criticism to that. If anything, it's just normalizing, like, hey, aren't we all beholden to a slumlord in real life and in this video game too?
I just don't understand fundamentally what this game is. I mean, I played it I have many issues with this game.
No, I'm not done.
Okay.
But the thing about New Horizons Tom Nook is that you can talk to people who have played this game and they don't know that Tom Nook, like that Tom Nook is supposed to be sinister. Like, they literally just think he's your bud. It's almost like I don't know any of these people. Like, but I'm sure they exist. I know that they exist.
It's like I don't know where you're finding them, but I do know about them.
It's like I have the They Live glasses on for Tom Nook. It's like, I feel like, because these people, they don't know Tom Nook, so they're just like, oh, this guy's my bud. He's giving me a tent. He's building me a house. He's like helping me be part of building this island with him. But if you know Tom Nook from the past, if you know his history, everything he does in that game,
you don't know what this motherfucker has done.
You don't know what he's done. So it's like I speak Tom Nook and they don't. And so once you, like, this is the thing, and I know sorry, I don't mean to sound like I am creating this deep read on Tom Nook, because this is what these people are saying when they complain about Tom Nook criticism, is they're like, it's on the surface, it's in the text, he's clearly manipulative and like a lord. He's the lord of the island, and he's manipulating you at every turn to do his bidding.
And but you and those people are right. That is the text.
The text. But they have declawed that part of the text of Animal Crossing to the point where new players do not read it that way anymore. And that's a huge problem. That's awful. Because now there are like people playing the game being like, I wish I could know if I just had a Tom Nook in my life, everything would be great.
But hold on, but this is the real horror of capitalism.
Is the real horror of capitalism.
They're right.
Oh, they are right that you would be better with Tom Nook than like your current landlord. Yeah,
and that is the sort of liberal brain sickness of like, can't all the rich people, can't all the people in charge be good? And the answer is no, they can't.
Yeah.
Tom Nook is a fantasy, and even the fantasy is a dark fantasy. Like, it's not even a desirable thing to wish for.
It's so funny that this is my game of the year and we're only criticizing it, but it is Run Button, so it's appropriate.
It's dog shit. It's a fucking dog shit game, and here's the thing: it fixed so many of my specific gripes with Animal Crossing New Leaf, which I famously hated. And still, all it did was lay bare the emptiness of Animal Crossing as a series. I mean, I spent 40 hours hoping that the shadow in the water was a specific kind of fish, and that's how I spent like 40 hours or more, maybe. Like, and that's all there was to do in the game was fish. Like, there was nothing else. It wasn't. Oh, and then the other thing was, I was number 2 on an island, an experience that I don't think a lot of people had.
Right. And same thing with New Leaf, right? Or you had...
No.
Oh, right.
New Leaf let me have my own island. So the thing, this was new. Because I had my own copy.
Right.
So that was the thing, is that because it was a DS, and because it was a DS, we had 2 DSs in the house. And so when I got New Leaf, I started up a game.
You had
we only have one
3DSs.
Switch because the Switch is not the same thing as a DS, and you don't just have 2 of them.
Well, no, I mean, it could have been the exact same thing. They just decided not to, so that people would have to buy more Switches, and they did.
Yeah, and so basically, we have one Switch, and so even if we got a second copy of the game, we would still have to... You can only have one island per console. And so I had to be second player on the island, which means that I not only missed a lot of, like, important recipes for, like basic furniture stuff.
Yeah.
I also, like, wasn't allowed to do anything on the island. Like, the other residents had nothing to say for me. They didn't have anything for me to do. Tom Nook didn't have anything for me to do. I couldn't build bridges. I couldn't do this. All I could do was dump money into projects that were already started. And so I had this, like, half-baked version of the game, which is like, well, you didn't play the full game, so you don't really know how it normally goes. First of all, it's close enough. It's just annoying and less convenient. It's stupid and bad for no real reason. And then the other thing is, like, but this is also the game how they made it. They made it so that if I wanted to have my own island, that is a new $360 project. And so I decided that my thing was just going to be to fill out the museum, because that was, I mean, even if it was the full game, that would be the only thing left for me to do. And it's like, sure, in this one I could pick my own haircut. I could change my hairstyle more than once a day. I could pick how my face looked and my own skin color. But I can't do anything else because there's nothing to do in the game. Which leads me to the question, what did you do for 300 hours in Animal Crossing?
It was only 200.
Oh, okay.
I'm not crazy.
Sorry, never mind. Now I get it.
Yeah. God, I really want to say, like, a quick piece on Animal Crossing, and then I want to be done. And it's not that you disliking the game isn't valid, but, like, we already did a whole podcast of you just complaining about Animal Crossing, and
that wasn't even the first time.
If this podcast...
But I want to say I get it. I played 50 hours or whatever,
Okay.
30 or 50, I don't know. But I did play it. Like, I understand how you could sink time into this game.
I just don't want to go past midnight.
I don't think... we got time. We got 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So say your piece on Animal Crossing.
Right. So I did enjoy it a lot. It was really the perfect game to come out at the time that it did, obviously, because it was right as the quarantine had been going for a couple weeks. And so it became, we've all heard the story that it was a great way to feel like, that you could, like, I don't know, maybe go out and do things is a stretch by playing Animal Crossing, but got to, like, meet up with friends and stuff. It was a great way to keep in touch with friends, and, the kids really liked it. And so it was fun to have just, like, a nice little game that you can noodle around with the kids in that they were really into, like, it just felt like the perfect game at the perfect time. And to me, it was like, it had to be my game of the year, because it's like, it just feel like Animal Crossing New Horizons just feels like the game of 2020. You know what I mean? Obviously, maybe you don't, because you didn't like it as much as I did. But if you did like Animal Crossing New Horizons...
I'll allow Animal Crossing New Horizons to be the game of the year from hell. Sure. All
right. So overall, so it's going to be the run button game of the year.
No. I mean spiritually.
Oh, okay.
Not overall. Sorry, I didn't mean it would be number one. I thought you meant in a sense, like, isn't this the game that represents this year? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Bad game, bad year. Sure.
I just meant that it was great to have something like Animal Crossing being the game that everyone was playing that year. so that people could visit your island and stuff. And the fact that it is kind of a nothing game about nothing kind of helped with that, because then you could it didn't you didn't have to like coordinate with your friends about like what level is your character and what part of the game, which chapter of the story should we play or something. It just, hey, come visit my island.
Right. There's no story, there's no level, there's nothing to do, so none of that matters.
Right.
One of the fun, I will say, one of my favorite jokes that I made all year was you can pick your little like 2-part name, your little new 2-part thing for your ID.
Your title.
Do you remember? Did you see my title and ID?
I did not see it, but I don't remember. I just remember what it was.
Okay, it was me. I recommend anybody try and find it on my thing on my Twitter. But it's me with half of my face obscured by the branches of a tree. And the tag is partially obscured genius. Which I
That's great.
I still get a kick out of.
Yeah.
Really think that's funny.
Animal Crossing New Horizons, when I bought it, I was almost mad at myself because I was just like, you didn't like the other 2 Animal Crossing games you played. You didn't like them that much. What are you doing buying this game for? But I just really fell in love with it in a way that I didn't for previous games in the series. It had a ton of fun, like just buying tons and tons of different clothing items from the Able Sister shop, because I felt like the clothes were finally nice in Animal Crossing, and the characters weren't hideous like they used to be. It was a lot of fun, collecting different clothing items and having different looks, and collecting all the different items to like decorate my house and make it nice. And I like the little touch. I really like the touch of how you could play.
I spent 50 hours in this game and was not able to collect even half of what I needed to make a kitchen.
But
I wanted to try and make a little house that made sense. I couldn't even make a kitchen.
Okay. Real criticisms of Animal Crossing New Horizons. It took me over 50 hours to have like everything for my bathroom and everything for my kitchen. So that's true. It's not that easy to do. But
it needs to be hard because there's nothing else.
Yep. Yeah. So, hey, I'm not here to defend every little flaw of Animal Crossing.
I had like 3 rooms and a basement when I quit, and nothing to put in any of them.
I have more Animal Crossing items than I could fit in 3 houses, probably.
Oh, me too, but they're all dog shit items. They don't make sense to put in a room. Sure, I could fill the house, but I don't want to fill the house with the things that I have.
When you play music, any of the music players in the game can really play music. And when you put
random notes.
You can put an instrument in the room. And then when you go over and push A on the instrument, they'll play a note that matches up with the song, and then you can kind of play along a little bit.
By the end, by 50 hours or however many hours I put in, honestly, you could tell me I played 30 hours, you could tell me I played 70 hours, and I would believe both. It's been a while, and also playing Animal Crossing, the time just melts away, and it has to, because otherwise there's no like. You need to get sucked into it, or you'd realize immediately the hollowness of what you're doing. By the end of it, I'll just say 50 hours, I had a TV and a couch, and I did have a room with like a stereo, a guitar, and an amplifier. And that almost seemed kind of like a music room. I had a tea set.
I bought a lot of turnips. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I got an invite to an island that had like turnips at basically selling at the max price. And so I made I want to say 3 million bells.
Yeah, we fucking moved some turnips over there, you know. My favorite one of my favorite rooms that I made in my house was when I had a room I didn't really have anything to do with. Oh, the thing about turnips, right? You can't put them away in storage. So they either have to be in your inventory or just physically taking up space on the ground. And so I had a turnip room in my house where the ground texture was dirt divided into rows, and so the turnips were on the rows, and then my walls were the inside of a volcano. It's all rocks and lava and stuff, and people would come in here and be like, "What's this? Is just a turnip room?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Why is there all this lava?" And I go, "Turnips grow underground." It's good.
Yeah, I think there's a tragedy to Animal Crossing for me where there are pieces of a game that I could really love, and there's just not enough in the game, and a lot of the parts that are there are extremely frustrating. And so part of my hatred for it is that I know that it's that they could make. I mean, it's very much like Pokemon. If Pokemon was a game that I hated, and that they then marginally improved, instead of a game that I love that they only marginally improved, where it's
and so
now made this same stupid hollow dog shit for 15 years.
It's so funny because this is how I feel about Pokemon.
Yeah, but you liked Pokemon when it was new.
Yeah,
you still like Pokemon in a way.
Yeah, I still like Pokemon in a way, just like you played Animal Crossing for 50 hours.
No, come on. There is no comparison between how you feel about. I mean, I hate Animal Crossing more than I hate almost anything else in all of the world.
This game you played for 50 hours.
Yeah, well, you know, I wanted to catch the fish. I wanted to. I gave
Get
it
out of here.
Here's the thing: you can no longer say ever. You can never say I didn't give it a real shot. Ever.
Oh no, I wouldn't say that. In fact, I'm so not saying that. I don't know why you're still arguing with me about Animal Crossing.
I'm just saying that the way that you feel about Pokemon is not on the level of how I feel about Animal Crossing. But it's really just I just can't believe they are it, because it feels like half of it is you've got this game that has some pieces that could make something really interesting, but on the other hand, it's been the same fucking game for almost 2 decades. Why? So I feel like people are being fleeced, but I also feel like people are seeing something that I'm not seeing. But also I'm I know that they're not really trying. This can't be what it looks like to really try.
You feel like people are being fleeced.
Right.
That's interesting, because that's, again, how I feel about Pokemon. When I play a Pokemon game, I'm I know they worked their ass off to make this game, but it really feels like they just shit this out over a weekend.
Yeah, but Pokemon's still fun, and it's still a whole ass game you can play.
Yeah, you know, I don't know, man.
I just think you just cannot compare the hollowness and nothing there-ness of Animal Crossing to Pokemon, no matter how you feel about it.
Well, no, but that's, I mean, that is the point of Animal Crossing, though. Here's a thing I did, though, right? As I was playing Animal Crossing, I also went and put 100 more hours into Stardew Valley, because I did also need to go play a fucking real ass farming game, though.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the part of it where I'm I don't know. I know that what Animal Crossing is what people want, but that also feels impossible. It's impossible that this is what people wanted. But everyone seems to agree that it is what people wanted.
Yeah. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We need to cut one game from this list and then rearrange it.
Do you have how did you do this?
Oh, Rocksmith didn't come out this year. I added your list to my list, and then I took out Rocksmith because it didn't come out this year, and I took out Inmost and Conduct together because they were 9 and 10 on my list.
Okay. And
we had Blazeball and Kentucky Route Zero as overlaps.
Okay, so we've got Kentucky Route Zero, Blazeball. Oh, I don't like how this looks. Animal Crossing can't be number 1.
Oh,
it's
well,
impossible.
I mean, I haven't ordered it at all. It's just like that.
Oh, okay. You just mashed them.
I just mashed them.
Is there something? So the thing that's not on here from my list is Crusader Kings and Microsoft Flight Simulator.
No, it's right here. Oh, sorry. Is it not on the screen correctly?
It's not on the screen.
Oh, whoops. Blah. This is not the
Okay,
thing.
so I guess maybe that's
yeah,
why
you were
I was
looking at the
confused and you
wrong
weren't.
thing. Sorry. Here's the list. My bad, everybody.
Do I have an actual link to the actual? I don't think I have the link to the actual
Just go to
site.
Go to Google Drive, and it should be under our recent files.
Okay. Recent files.
And this was I moved Kentucky Route Zero down to the bottom to make Keith happy.
Okay.
And of course, to remind everybody, the bottom is the top, so that's supposed to be the best one.
Right, because we count down.
Right, you count down.
Somehow the biggest issue every year. whether we do it the way that I like it or we do it the way that Kylie likes it, it's always the biggest issue.
No, it's not true. It hasn't been the biggest issue these past 2 years.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, so we're going my number 1 and then your number 1.
Oh, sure. I mean, I wasn't... Yeah, what are we doing with these?
I mean, if you wanted to
Blazeball.
put one of your other games ahead of Animal Crossing, I don't hate that.
No.
Even though we both had Blazeball on there.
I'll give you Blazeball. It's fine. There you go. How's that?
And
And then we have these ones.
Okay. How do you feel about Paradise Killer above Black Mesa?
That's fine.
And Crusader Kings between Black Mesa and Hades? And Flight Simulator last?
Sounds good to me.
Wow. So easy.
Wow, it's done. Fucking print it. 10.
Print it.
Okay, you read them off as I number them. 10.
Microsoft Flight Simulator.
9.
Hades.
8.
Crusader Kings 3.
7.
Black Mesa 1.0 / Definitive Edition.
6.
Paradise Killer.
5.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2.
4.
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
3.
Animal Crossing New Horizons.
2.
Blazeball.
1.
Kentucky Route Zero.
Yay! It's over now.
It's over. I will say I did get 100% of my games on the list. The definitive all-time winner of the list. That's funny, right?
Yeah, it's funny. That was like the only time it's been funny. That was like
it's been funny for me every time.
This is like an 11 or 12 year bit that like just paid off. Like it's like the longest joke you've ever told.
I will say this. I will give you 2. We have to peek behind the curtain a little bit on that hilarious, amazing joke.
Okay.
It was not the deciding reason why I came with 5, but I knew this would happen.
The fucking truth comes out at the end every goddamn year.
I knew this would happen. I wasn't the deciding reason why I came with 5. I did genuinely feel all of the things that I said, but I also knew that I would be able to pull this. I didn't know that I would be able to get all of them. So the line that I had was that you were going to try to be like, I thought you were going to try to say that you've got 6 games on here and I only have 4. And I was like, yeah, but I have 80% of my list on
it's
here.
a total joke. I have 7 games, you have 5. I kicked your ass. This is the best anyone's ever done at Game of the Year.
I have 100% of my list.
No. I have 7 games on this list. You have 5 games on this list.
No. Here's the thing.
No. If I handed you 5 games, would you say, "Oh, you gave me 5 games," or would you say, "You gave me 100% of games"?
If you only had 5 games, there's a little story. There's a little story that I like to tell about 2 people in a church. One man is very wealthy, and he gives hand over fist to the church, donating in a way everyone can see. Mm-hmm. But there's a humble and meek gentleman in the back, poor, has only a quarter to his name, and he puts that in the collection bin and doesn't say a word. Who's given more?
Wow. And I think you've really
said... It's 100% of games.
Keith, I think you've really said all that needs to be said. That's 100% of games, and this list is 100% of the games worth playing that came out in 2020. A terrible, awful year.
Can I just read a couple of the games on my list from last year?
The intro music is about to kick in, so you have like 2 seconds.
Outer Wilds, Sekiro, Disco Elysium, Dragon Quest Builders, Death Stranding.